Hello, everybody. Hello, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Elevated Conversations with Empress. Today, we have brought back two of your faves, and I will introduce them one by one. We have Mr. Happy Angry Lawyer. Let me go ahead and put my camera on. I just realized it's not there. Here we are.
Hey there.
All right. How are you doing this evening?
I'm pretty good. Just finished work, and
Just finished work for
yeah,
the evening.
yeah.
Awesome. Okay, and then we have Antonio. Happily Angry Lawyer, Mr. Jim R, Mr. Now Happily Angry Esquire on Twitter. Um, the people that don't know who you are, tell them who you are, what you do, where you're from, all that good stuff.
I was ready for this. Yeah. So my name's Jim. I go by Happily Angler on Twitter, and yeah, I just got interested in this case around the time Brian Steele got himself locked up, and I started just diving into random parts of the case that interested me after that, and
You delve deep. You have taken a lot of time and a lot of energy into picking out things that people would not have ordinarily seen that I think had people fully. I mean, well, we see what the end verdict is, but it's like,
yeah,
wow.
it's not. There's just a lot of it. There's a lot of stuff. Just there's 28 defendants and a decade worth of allegations at least, and yeah, there's just always something that pops up. Usually, I end up in sitting down intending to write like a 15-second tweet, and then
And then the brain just keeps
4 hours later,
right. All
um,
right.
yeah, it's just been a interesting case to say the least.
No, I agree. I agree. Um, I'd like to know before we get started and delving into what the jurors had to say. Um, overall, over the you say you've been watching Jim since probably about the summertime. Antonio, how long have you been tuned into the case?
Um, I think about eight months or so. I missed like the first few. Like I've been tuning in since the trial started, but I missed a lot of the stuff that happened pre-trial.
Absolutely, absolutely understood. So between the time that you guys have been watching, what's the one thing that really like stood out to you guys between this whole trial? Like if you could sum it up in three words. Three words. I was gonna say three words. How would you sum up this trial? This part of the trial.
And which part? Just everything.
Just the YSL trial in general. Like how would you sum this up?
I mean, I would
Free
call it like a Netflix show. Like it's insane. It's a lot of drama that happened. It was not a normal trial. This was not normal court. This was a whole ass TV show. Um, and so
I
that's
agree.
kind of how I would sum it up very very shortly. If you're asking like what's my most memorable moment of the trial, are you
Hmm.
also asking that? Um, Man, I want to say it was Judge Glanville getting recused, and I want to say it's other parts, but really the one thing that I constantly go back and I think about and I chuckle is when Woody told Simone, oop, lights just went off in here. When Woody told Simone to get back whenever she walked up to him and
Hmm.
approached him, that was like the funniest thing ever, and I still think about it sometimes and I laugh, and I just can't imagine like what's going through your head as a prosecutor as you're walking up to your witness and they're telling you to get back. It's just hilarious. It's so embarrassing. I can't believe he did that.
I agree. I remember that. I remember that. What about you, Jim?
three. I mean, 3 words. Just free the boys. It's
Free the
been
boys.
um, memorable. I mean, not this is more of a series of events, but the Antonio Sledge thing. Um,
Hmm.
just because, I mean, this is all I ever talk about, but just because of how far it kept going back, and
But look where he's at. He's the only person that is doing real time behind this, and he wasn't even a defendant.
no,
And like you said, you've gone through and kind of combed through a lot of his paperwork, and it seems that, in all honesty, he shouldn't be there from the looks of things.
Yeah, no, not even that. But I mean, remember at the plea hearing, or let's see, the revocation hearing, and
Hmm.
the probation supervisor was reading out his crimes, and she said he'd been convicted of attempted sexual battery, and that just wasn't at all true. And
Right.
there's a lot of people seeing that, and I still see it on Twitter. People saying that he was convicted of that. So
And he
it's
wasn't, right? Is that what you're saying?
no, he wasn't.
Wow, that's so dangerous. That is
Yeah,
so dangerous. That is so
Someone
dangerous.
was asking earlier in a space where what can he do, and what can anyone do for him? And I believe really the only thing to do is logically is to wait some time to give it to like some space to air out and then come back with a motion to reconsider. Is
Does
And
he
that would
have
just
that
be
time?
well. I would think, and it's just kind of reasonable, say like your mom grounds you and like she says, hey, no video games tonight. Like if you
Hmm.
come back in 4 hours and you say, hey, mom, can I have the game back? She's gonna say no. But maybe if you wait, 8 hours and it's like 9 p.m. and you say, hey, mom, can I have this? She's like, yeah, fine, whatever. It's kind of works the same thing with courts. If they deny you on something, you come back and you ask the
Hmm.
next day, they're gonna be unwilling or to change their mind on it. But I think that maybe a year or a year and a half or maybe half the sentence.
That's a long
Um,
time.
but I'm not sure what the procedure is in Georgia. If
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
motion to reconsider is the proper means to do that, there might be a better motion or a more appropriate motion to file. But that's kind of what I think. That's kind of my thoughts on the situation. I was curious what Jim thought.
I was gonna say, Jim, what do you think? Because there's been a not guilty at this point, and we'll go through what the jurors had to say about everything. But because there's been a not guilty, I know that they were saying, um, at the end of the day, people are like, oh well, he signed the plea. That was his plea. What do you think about that? Like at this point with everything.
well, he did sign a plea agreement, and his Judge Glanville said no, and he was sentenced on different terms. And at least as I see it, the plea agreement was not accepted by the courts, and it shouldn't even have been considered.
Wow.
But to the question about procedure, I do think the motion to reconsider is too late. But
Hmm.
there are so I mean, the first thing is the sentence is it's just incorrect. It wasn't. It's too long. It's above the maximum amount of time you can get for that combination of
Oh
crimes.
wow.
So they kind of hid that in the revocation motion, and by kind of I mean they did. Um,
Wow.
so he can actually his sentence is void under Georgia law, so he can just file a motion for sentencing or something along those lines with the
Hmm.
court. He can also withdraw his guilty plea if he wanted to. But
Wow. I was gonna say I know there's a change.org petition as well going around. If one of the mods can put it in the chat for Antonio Sledge, if you can put, I'm not sure if the GoFundMe is still there, but I do know that there's a petition to try to get things rolling. And but like you
yeah,
said, are you saying that if you think that it's too late for
uh,
what Antonio stated?
yeah. I mean, it's just it's not a huge difference, but yeah, it wouldn't. It just wouldn't be called a motion for reconsideration.
So
You just have
okay,
to put a different combination of words at the top. But it's effectively the same.
change little words around a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Don't tell anybody I said that, but
so the elephant in the room, the not guilty verdicts, as far as pretty much the whole, like obviously, the possession of a firearm, but also the bulk of things, that the murders, the RICO. What do you guys think about that? Like, what do you think of the not guilty? Like, and to throw it out there, it being Doug's first criminal case, and beating something like this, like that is remarkable.
I thought the not guilty. I mean, from the beginning of this case, since I watched it, and these lights keep turning off, I thought that it would be a hung jury, and I was actually very
Mm.
shocked to see not guilty across the board for the Ricos. I thought that would be very difficult to decipher. for the jury. But it turns out that the RICO was something that they were, quickly able to dissolve, and that they spent a lot of their time talking about like the murders and kind of like really the inefficiencies of the state's case, it seems. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. What about you, Jim?
Yeah, I agreed on the hung jury. I thought that was at least on something to be a hung jury,
But
just
you
because
saw
there's.
the alternate. The alternate said, had she been in that room, it would have been a hung jury. So the energy was there for it had they chosen a certain people.
I haven't watched that video yet because I know
Oh,
it's
we're
just.
about to.
I know it's. Oh, God. Okay, well, I saw the tweets about the video and I just decided
Hmm.
I can't do this today. So I haven't gotten to it yet, but we'll see. But yeah, there's just so much stuff again that people can use to draw conclusions that I figured somebody would reach a different conclusion, um, at least on some part of the case. But that
Right.
didn't seem to be close to happening.
Yeah, I always felt like, it's very like how I saw the case was very clear, but like I always kept it in the back of my mind that like not everyone sees things like the
Yeah,
way that I see it. And so it's very easy to, look at these facts and think, okay, you know, okay, there was crime. There are these group of guys. They do
Mhm.
claim that they're YSL. I thought that I could see the logic of them finding them guilty. And so I was always like, man, this is going to be a tough one. But man, like, I, I don't, it sounds like Jim hasn't saw the video with the jurors, but they are just like us, it was very cool
Literally,
to
you would
see.
think that they were one of us.
Right. And if
oh,
we
I
would
saw
have
some of that.
known, if we would have known that that's who they were, we probably would have got so much more sleep throughout this trial and so much less stress. But man, it's remarkable to see, honestly.
I agree. So I want to say welcome again to everybody that is tuned in on YouTube and those that are tuned in on X right now. Again, if you're tuned in on YouTube, come chat with us. We'll chat with you guys. If you are on Twitter, I can see what you type, but it's a little harder for me to get back to you guys. But we are about to go through several videos and kind of get live reactions, especially Jim hasn't seen quite a few of them, I don't think, from my understanding. So that's going to be interesting. Um, let's see, where do we start, guys? I think I actually want to switch it up just a little bit and kind of watch this video of we'll start with Donovan Thomas' mother. She posted yesterday a TikTok on just she was, angry. She got the verdict like everybody else, and she was at the cemetery and she spoke her mind. Um but there's a video now uh, of her on channel was the Atlanta News First, and she's speaking now. Those that have seen the TikTok, I won't be posting the TikTok. You can go find it for yourself. But I will say that her tune changed just a little bit. But I also say that was because I'm sure she maybe in a different mind frame than that original, not guilty verdict. So let's go ahead and watch that really quickly. Because again, we are excited about the not guilty, but there are victims in this case. Whether we know who did what or not, we still have to be respectful of that aspect. Um, right.
Once. Was so full of life. Walked into a room and left the room.
9 years later, Shawana Edmonds still remembers her son vividly, every little detail about Donovan Thomas Jr.
I could write a book about him. My gentle giant, my second born, 26 wonderful years. I thank God for. And we'll do it all over again if I have to.
Thomas, who was also known as Peanut, was a father to 2 kids. He loved his family and had many things going for him, including a clothing line. But with those memories comes one that Edmonds sadly can't forget.
January 10th, 2015, my world changed. stood still.
The 26-year-old was shot and killed in an alleged gang-related incident in the Castleberry Hill neighborhood, a murder that became a big focus of the YSL trial, a case that was internationally watched due to its celebrity ties, with rapper Young Thug at the center.
They didn't know Donovan in 2015. They just knew him from the point of this trial and the persons who was involved.
On Tuesday, Edmond was in the courthouse when the remaining two defendants, Diamante Kendrick and Shannon Stillwell, were found not guilty on charges related to Thomas's murder.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen in our favor, but as a family, we're okay. It's time for me to pick up the pieces.
Edmond still wants justice, though she says it would be hard to go through another trial and be let down. She wanted to make a statement in the courtroom at one point, but wasn't able to do so, which is why she's speaking out now.
I'm sad, but I'm happy too. I have happy tears too, knowing the child that I raised and the love that he's getting 10 years later, 9 years later.
And Edmond says the prosecutors presented a good case and she does not blame them for the trial's outcome. Live in full.
So, in listening to that, yesterday in that TikTok, she actually blamed the jurors. She was very angry, as anybody would be. But I think that she was lied to. I think that the family of Chanel Drinks was lied to. And I hurt for them. But from the evidence that was presented to the jurors, the evidence that the world has seen, I don't think that these boys did it. So in a situation like that, it's always like, how do you find comfort, right? Especially when you've been promised, oh, we'll get them. It seems like it's kind of by any conviction necessary, right? Because we see on the next set of this trial, there's still 3 people that are accused of killing Donovan Thomas. So at this point, does the state change their theory? And it's not guilt, you see what I'm saying? And so that's kind of where I'm at with that and trying to figure that whole thing
out. Yeah, I mean, the thing that jumped out to me was really just not so much. I mean, I would never blame the mother of the murder victim for their reaction. So I'm not really reading into any of that. It's more so, first of all, the way the story is framed too. The caption was "Mother of Victim in YSL Trial." I mean, maybe, but that hasn't been shown yet. And so when you're looking at the specific events in the YSL trial, we don't know if that's actually true. And the other thing that struck me was they mentioned that Donovan Thomas had a clothing line, and that was struck me given the extent to which, I mean, I think it was Miles Parley was a clothing line, and that's been used over and over against the YSL defendants. Yeah, I think it was just kind of the framing of the story is kind of
media
skills.
Yeah. It's sad to watch, nonetheless. My heart hurts for her. It seems like she was very, very close with her son, and as I watched that video, I began to put myself in her shoes and also try to think about it from the state perspective as well. It's a tough position everybody's in, and whenever you're a victim of a crime and there's a not guilty verdict after a trial, that has to sting in many different ways. So I don't blame her for lashing out. I haven't seen what she said or if she said anything negative about the jury or anything like that, but I don't blame her if she does. But it's just a tough position.
Right.
Everybody's in.
Right.
Yeah. And I just said one thing about the state. I mean, they didn't bother to spell Donovan Thomas's name right in their slides for their closing arguments. So if
I
you're talking about
saw.
And they don't get any credit.
The competency. So in something like that, right, where we see that they lack, I won't say that. Well, let me rephrase. Not that they lack. It just seems like they lack competency to be at the level that they're at. And you're trying a RICO case. You're trying and as we're going to hear the jury say they didn't like the way the state presented the case, you're going to hear them say like they felt like the state thought that they were stupid, essentially. You know, the way that they talked to them, the way that they avoided the third car, the way all these things they spoke about, you know, things that we were discussing. It was just very interesting to see. So we're going to start with Mel from But I'm Not a Lawyer. That interview last night was so great. I didn't see all of it, so some of it may be new to me as well. I ended up kind of dozing off because I was tired yesterday, but we're going to do that right now. It's very interesting. You'll see something right off the bat. I think you'll notice, Jim.
Yeah, I did watch probably the first shot. First version of this one.
Yeah. Now I didn't grab like clips and stuff like that. I'm just gonna play it out because it's that good. I feel like you gotta hear it and not just, you know, what one may want you to hear. So I'm gonna run through. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but I will play some of it.
Oh, the shirt was my favorite part of the.
So we have juror 508 and I believe juror 22.
I think it's 5225.
225. Yeah. That she gave.
We good?
Listening to her was like, wow.
Okay, I'm going to bring our jurors up. And you guys should feel so thankful.
Amazing interview.
Because we're going to get some faces. Oh, want me to wait a second? Oh, okay. Here we go.
Getting her number.
It's all right. So we'll start though on the right, Boys in the Hood, 225.
I'm 225. I wore this for a reason today. This was my statement, T.
Oh, I can't wait to ask you about that. Okay, and then here in the middle, because I think the other one is to the right of you.
Well, she's on the other side, but it's okay.
Okay, so then to the left of 225 is 387.
387.
Yep. Right?
What's funny, I'm going to pause that there's some people believe that 387 is the same juror that was interviewed by Dennis Byron, which we're actually going to listen to a little later. So maybe if you listen to her voice, we're going to jump over that after we watch a little bit of this. But they think it's the same juror. That's the word on the Twitter street. So just threw that out.
There it is. It was an alternate. Yep. And then 508, also an alternate. Yep. Okay. All right. So let's start from the beginning. How did you feel about being selected? What was and the information that you had about how long it was going to last? Let's start there, and y'all can jump in, or if you prefer me to like call out numbers, we can do that too. But for now, I guess we can just get into it.
Who wants to start? We'll let Bobby start.
Okay.
Well, for me, how it felt to
225.
Yeah, 225. 225. Hold on. Yeah. Excuse me. I was actually very surprised when I got selected because I had just participated in the grand jury at Fulton County, so I thought I couldn't get called again. And they called me for this, and the fact that they selected me, I was like, come on, man, like again. So I mean, I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised because honestly, I didn't really know much about Young Thug, and I had just moved to Fulton County a couple years before that, so I didn't know much about the county, the gangs, anything like that. But I just couldn't believe that I got called again because I had just got selected to be on a grand jury, so it was a shock for me.
You just moved to Fulton County, got selected for the grand jury, and then this one?
Well, yeah, not just. I think I was. When did we get picked? 2020. When did we get called? 2023.
Look at that.
Yeah. 2022. Yeah, I have been in Fulton County.
2022.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the summer of 2021, I think, is when I did grand jury, and I moved to Fulton County in 2020. So I had only been there a couple of years. Most of the time that I've been in Atlanta.
Let's see.
I was in October. They told me 6 to 9.
They did definitely tell me that.
And I was like, October 26th. And I was like, okay.
So right now they're discussing.
I have my life back.
We're thinking end of summer.
In the summer, and I'll be back. Kids go back to school. I'll be finished.
Right. No, right. Was not the case.
And just being selected was like drawn out.
for us. Period. Like the selection part, we was just like the way they had it set up.
You had to call.
We was already in jail before we was in jail.
Yeah. After we went for our initial thing, which was crazy because I remember going in and being like, wait, I saw all of these cameras, all of these news cameras. And then you see all of the defendants sitting across from us. And I'm like, what?
So I have a question, guys. They said that they felt like they were in jail. What do you think about that? About a jury, like the jurors feeling like they're in jail?
It's because of all those damn comfort breaks from Glanville. You know, they've been stuck in the jury room, not knowing what to do. I don't make much of it. It's just bad organization.
I think that looks crazy because especially if you're trying to have them in there for a year and right out the gate they're already saying, "I feel like we're in jail. We keep stopping you. We've been at this for months and months and months." like
right.
I don't
not
know
knowing what's happening.
Wanted a conviction.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, even if you have like a day off, you don't know how many days off, so you can't really plan any, trips or anything like that or get away. You're always tethered to the jury, unless you go to the Dominican, then you're not. But in theory, you're tethered to the jury. It also is crazy that there were 500 and I know that there were hundreds, if not thousands, of prospective jurors, but that there is a number 508 kind of tells you quite a bit about the process.
Yeah, that's a huge number.
Right, go from 225 to 508. All right, let's see.
Yeah,
that's why I said we was in jail before.
Yeah, and we were afraid, like, if you don't call, and then you don't know when you're supposed to come back. If you're supposed to come back that day, and then you don't show up, then you might go to jail because you didn't show up. So, like, I had like a reminder on my phone to call the number every day to see, like, if my number would come up that I had to come back. So, and then they ended up sending an email anyway saying, like, "Hey, you got to come back. You were selected." So we called all the time for nothing.
For no reason. They didn't even email me. They called me. I was actually on the expressway on the way home from work. And it was like, "I speak with such and such," and I was like, "Well, this is me. Well, can you be at court tomorrow?" What I done did.
It was like, let's skip a little bit.
So the cost of living is crazy.
A couple of months where I did not get my normal income. So that kind of made me have to pivot.
Yeah.
Or seek other opportunities outside of jury because you're $25 a day, but like I forfeited my bonus. I forfeited my pay increase. I forfeited my position because I wasn't enrolled and mine is metric based. So I was a part of the few that had some financial hiccups over there.
Yeah.
Some of us had to relate to doing Instacart and and all that stuff for extra money because we couldn't get an extra because court schedule was so unpredictable. It was so unpredictable that you can't even get a second job if you normally would have a second job because we never knew when we would be done.
Yeah.
It was a bit much. It was a lot much.
Actually, really appreciate you guys sharing that because I think, for a lot of us watching.
Sorry, guys, gonna skip ahead. If y'all want to see
if it is the funniest one, if it is like the one that their testimony stuck out the most,
I'm not a
like,
male.
Who comes to mind as like most memorable in 170 days?
Grown.
Came in there with her ponytail and she gave us all of the sass. Miss Ladner was one of my favorites because she hated being in there and it was obvious.
I'm sorry, guys. There's a portion that I'm trying to get to.
Can you imagine if they got
y'all was kind of inhuman.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I was picturing if they got like Instacart when they had to deliver to like Young Thugs,
right?
Like Dora's house or something.
That would have been interesting.
That would have been hilarious.
Out there by the food truck all the time, so they were seeing everything.
Because I feel like he was kind of giving it back to them. Like he was like one of them.
You know, y'all look kind of inhuman in certain situations, and it has nothing to do with what the facts are. Like, it should be fact-based, not my opinion. Most whole has nothing to do with what decision you want us to make. Present a case and kind of stick to it. I think her, Dexter Montgomery, was in that same bucket for me. And then it was somebody else, I can't remember their name. But it's more so like you brought people in to make it seem like the care was there, and that's not what I got from that message.
Yeah. I also do like Sumlin because I feel like he was kind of giving it back to them. Like he was like one of the ones that was like kind of like, don't play with me, like don't talk like I'm a child. Like, so you know, at that point we were ready for somebody to kind of, you know,
And you guys are, you're aware of what happened to Antonio Sumlin Moontunk afterward?
No.
So based off of his testimony, and I don't know if you guys tuned in, but the way that the questions began being asked was, here is your plea, and are you saying number one is true or false? Number two is true. She went through, and because he basically went back on a number of those factual acknowledgments that he had to say, he actually ended up, his probation was revoked. He ended up being sentenced 5 years. He's back in jail.
That's crazy.
That is deep. That's no, that's terrible because like
the only person
and he.
Oh wait! I'm sorry. Wait, hold on. I said I'm thinking Antonio Sledge. You said Sumlin.
Yeah, that's what I mean, Sledge, not Sumlin. I meant Sledge. Sledge.
Okay. I was like, I'm telling y'all wrong information because my mind was wrong.
No, we knew who you were talking about.
Moontunk. Okay.
But yeah, that's still crazy.
That's still crazy.
Because we knew. I mean, sitting in there, like when we hear the stuff, because we kind of picked up on what they were saying as far as like the plea deals and stuff. And me personally, I felt like people were just signing whatever to get out. So like to
figure,
because it sounded like he was going up there saying that he was trying to like tell his truth, kind of like Woody, like I'm trying to tell y'all what's real. And y'all not listening to me. So to hear that he ended up having to go back to prison after that for trying to tell his truth is crazy.
And he also kept saying, well, I thought that I would have the opportunity to explain myself. So like,
and that resonated with you guys. You guys felt like that was real.
Yeah, I definitely felt.
I mean, I did.
I mean, we can't speak for the rest though, but I definitely did.
Yeah. No, it's so interesting to hear that. And I just want.
So I have to ask you what you think about that, Jim.
How much time do I have? I mean, they're completely right. I agree with everything they're saying. I don't know where to start.
I know you took a lot of love into Antonio, so I know that. Not to say that you would take it personal, but that was the time and effort that you put into even like combing through his case. I understand that you're a lawyer, however, the energy that you put into that show that you cared, that he was pretty much in It's My Show, so I'll crush, but he was fucked over. They fucked him over, so it's like to hear the jury say that, and knowing that he got more time than anybody that was on the trial, it's.
Yeah. It was just one thing after another. It's the more I haven't finished finding stuff that's wrong. I just kind of stopped looking. And I think I wrote something about how it goes back to, I think, 20 years at this point that they've been making mistakes. Well, I'll be nice and say mistakes. They attributed a conviction to him that was actually to a separate person named Anthony Sledge.
I missed that part. Wow.
Yeah. False accusations. If you go back and watch his guilty plea, you'll see that Ms. Love doesn't actually show. She holds on. She keeps possession of the plea agreement in her hand the entire time, and she shows the cover of the plea agreement, which is dated December 27th, and then she shows the back page, which only has the signatures. And there are just a lot of things that sort of suggest that it was an intentional act on behalf of the state. The other thing is, it's funny to mention Antonio Sumlin, because he was the only other person that didn't have he didn't do like a factual acknowledgement line by line. This is true, this is true, this is true. And
yeah, you saw him up there shaking. He was worried. He was worried. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, everybody else got that. Those two didn't, and I don't know. It's just one thing after another. The sentence is wrong. There were so many mistakes at the guilty plea hearing. They didn't. Love and the judge both got mixed up on what crimes he was even accused of.
Right, so in that case, it goes back to what you and Antonio were saying about him being able to, like, where do a lot of people wanted to know, like a lot of people ask about it often, where does Antonio go from here? Where do you, I guess you can't give law advice, but where do you suppose he goes from here?
My thought would be he needs to file whatever type of motion that allows him to be able to tell the story of what has happened here, and it has to be like a serious motion, like Jim was saying, like it has to be to like revoke. It has to be. It's gonna have to be something that's gonna get the court's attention and say, "Oh crap," right? Like it can't be like probably not the motion to reconsider, but something similar to like, I don't know. I think that maybe trying to revoke his plea that actually might be something that would get the court looking into how the plea went down. I don't know. And there's also all sorts of timelines.
That's the thing. You can revoke your plea.
You can try.
Yeah, you definitely you can. Well, I shouldn't say that. In this case, I think he would be able to.
Okay.
Very likely. But yeah, I mean, it's going to take. I mean, fortunately, he doesn't have to go to the appeals court, which saves decades of time, a very long amount of time. He can just file in the.
He got screwed. He definitely got screwed. That sucks.
Yeah, but the other thing is he had this. He was the first section, 133, 131 mistake.
Pointed it out, and then I saw it later on in some other stuff.
Yeah, and I think the judge may be less than thrilled that wasn't mentioned or brought to her attention by the prosecutors. That's the sort of thing that you should go back and check and notice and tell the court about, and duty of candor. So she might not be very forgiving of the state's mistake.
Mods, if you can go ahead and drop the link in the chat as well for Motunk, the change.org petition, so that people that are very interested can go ahead and sign that and help get Motunk out of jail. It's free Motunk until we get him out of jail. So drop that link for us, please. That way other people are able to go ahead and sign that petition, sign it, share it. Free Motunk for sure. Also free Lil Rod. Mods, you have the link as well. Go ahead and drop the link for him so that he can have effective counsel whenever he goes back to trial. Whenever that may be. That's a long process as well. A lot of this stuff is a long process for things to happen.
Yeah, I think he has a pending appeal. I think it's set for decision soon.
Yeah, it's pending. And that's why, because people were asking, and people often ask me, well, what does it mean? He has, a defender, he has this, he has that. Yeah, he does. But once it does end up going back to actual trial, and, if that happens or when that happens, I'd like to say when that happens. When he's able to go to trial, he needs, or he wants, a team. He wants a team of attorneys. So whatever that looks like for him and his family, then that's, what I sought to help them with. So
got it. Yeah.
Check it out. That will be justiceforlilrod.com. And also we have the petition for Antonio Sled, aka Motunk, also dropped in the chat. Also the petition for the raps lyrics bill that is in Congress, that is also in the chat. So if you guys could just be out here clicking tonight and helping make change just by signing your name, so a lot of these petitions and a lot of these things can begin to open up doors to have change occur. Again, that's all inside the chat. We're gonna go back to the jurors though, because the chat wants us to skip over to the Kokomo part, because when Kokomo comes in, they say it gets a little lit. So we're gonna maneuver.
I do have a question. The Blaylock appeal. Have we heard anything back from the Supreme Court on that?
I don't know. But let's see if Jim gives us an answer.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to Google it. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not doing anything.
These days, so I thought you had something.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know how long it takes, but I assume it's not too far off at this point.
I would do that, Teresa. I will
Right.
put all the links in the description as well. Yes,
We're
ma'am.
about like a month and a half out, right? From
Mhm.
from the oral argument.
I think it was about a month ago,
Yeah.
maybe. One of the mods said they checked today and there's no opinion yet.
Thank you for checking.
So again, it's a waiting game, but I really hope that we all stay on top of it, you know, because these cases and cases like this fall through the cracks every single day. And a lot of us are paying attention to this originally because it was, you know, it is a high profile case, right? But then we have those little cracks, you know, as far as like the Rod's case, the Wilson's case, things of that nature. People fall through those cracks. And I don't want them to fall through cracks. I want us to be able to, you know, follow this case into the end, and that means little bitty cases as well. And I won't call them. I'm not saying little bitty because people take everything out of context. I mean, just you know, the smaller. They're not the high profile portion of the cases, so many people may not pay attention. But I definitely want us to continue.
Yeah, that's part. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say that was kind of this is what I've got to say earlier about Sledge was that was one of the things that drew me to his case as well. Is you have you know, people getting excellent representation, and you know that even if they're not wealthy, like Thug is, they're have access to competent defense, and he just I'm not saying Wright wasn't, but he just kind of fell through the cracks. You know, he was the little guy who fell through the cracks, and he wasn't the star, and you know.
And a lot of times people don't know what effective counsel looks like, right? Straight out the gate, you can say, oh, you know, my lawyer or this, you know, the lawyer that I'm looking at, he's won X number of cases or this, that, and third, but he may not have taken a case like your case before, or, you know, he may not be well versed in that, but you don't know that sometimes going in when you pay X amount of dollars. You know, some people pay 500 and think they should get the best attorneys, which I mean, granted, you know, everybody's going to do things on their own accord, but you just don't know out the gate. You can pay $10,000 and get a terrible attorney, you know? So it's how do you suggest someone find effective counsel? I think that's a good question before we go back into
I mean, it's hard to give a specific answer, but I think you can ask the bar association for somebody who's experienced in a specific area, and I think you generally have a good idea of who the relevant people are, because every lawyer will say they can do. That's not true. Many lawyers will say they can do everything, and that's not true. And I'm not a criminal specialist by any means, but I'm just personal interest in the case.
Right. I think that's just across the board with anything, right? Because a lot of people may or may not have been tuned in yesterday when I spoke about. I think that everything in every portion of your life, the way the society has been set up, you need a lawyer for everything. You need a lawyer for, you know, business, for insurance, for this, for that. Because as lay people, a lot of people just go in and find stuff, right? But for things to be effective, I've learned and I've seen that having a lawyer for pretty much all aspects of business or your life or things that you choose to do is very important. But again, most people don't know that. Most people don't know where to find an attorney. Like obviously you Google now, but to actually find effective counsel, people don't know the first step to it.
Yeah, I can't give any tips on how to find effective counsel, but how I would define effective counsel is a zealous advocate, um, and someone who's gonna zealously advocate for you is going to be 9 times out of 10 effective, in my opinion. And I'm not an attorney, but that's just how I view it pre-law school.
Great, great. Okay, I'm going to.
I'll say this: if you feel like something's wrong, if you have suspicions, you're not getting your questions answered, or you're confused, that's a legitimate way to feel, and that's a bad sign, and you should ask questions. If you don't understand it, that's the lawyer's fault.
That makes sense. Thank you.
You are not alone. I mean, I can speak for all three of us. We definitely kept that in the back of our heads.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Even you know, YSL is this criminal street gang, and to support that idea, there were a lot of gang experts brought into this trial to testify. And I am so curious about how you guys as jurors received the gang experts. How did you receive their testimony? What do you think now about gang experts? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, for starters, I can say that currently today, all three of us, we are gang experts.
Gang and CSI experts. So we're all kind of experts at this point.
That's on our resume
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Hey, man. Sounds about right.
Right.
Isn't that interesting?
I
like
think it's actually.
Gang experts.
I think that's very interesting, and that's so bad whenever you have laymen who are in a court and they're being presented with evidence that requires expertise, and them feeling like they're at the same level of expertise at the end of the trial as the experts that came in that have been, had to proffer before the court that they were, knowledgeable and had exceptional experience in this topic. Like, it's mind blowing. Imagine the same thing, like a doctor coming in to give medical advice about, someone's passing or something like that. And the jurors of that case came out and said, yeah, I think I can do just as good a job as the medical examiner or the doctor who came in to tell us about XYZ condition. It's a bit mind blowing, and the standard for expertise in these cases, I think, needs a little bit of reform because you can't just allow anyone to come in present. I mean, and I get that courts generally allow they allow weak evidence. They anything that's relevant really and that doesn't break the rules can come in. However, and I get why they do that. They say, hey, if it's weak evidence, refute it with stronger evidence, right? But we can't allow, like, the expertise area just needs, I think, a little bit of reform on how we determine who's an expert in a field. And I think we heard that from the YSL attorneys throughout the case. They were kind of making that same argument.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, it was. It's okay. This is completely not legal. This is just my layperson opinion. Okay. But how can everybody in your gang team be an expert and you have a massive gang problem? Like, if you were all experts, you would have this problem.
That is
learning on the job.
Somebody sucks at their job. I'm sorry. That has to be true.
I do kind of want to go back to that because a lot of the problems we see in this case, it's not actually due to the prosecutors outside of Adrian Love. A lot of the problems in this case have a lot to do with the investigators who investigated these crimes in the first place and handed off their case files to these prosecutors. And I mean, and so it's to say, it's not the prosecutors that don't care about the victims, because we were kind of talking about this earlier. It's really these investigators who are investigating the crimes that happen to these victims that don't care about the families and that don't care about seeking justice, that want to do the minimal work and want to be lazy. It's those guys that are the problem. And so shame on them.
I agree.
Yeah, then some of them, they just even make their own victims.
Right. We saw that in this case as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of the problem with that is that you have like Sprinkle, who's kind of in that hybrid role. So it's hard to distinguish between the investigators and the hybrid personally, but that's right. I think that's really a good example of why the prosecutor shouldn't be taking that active of a role in investigations, because it's just.
So that makes sense. So what you guys are saying is that we can blame Love for how she presented what she was given, but essentially it's the job of APD and their detectives and things like that, and how some of them didn't get reports and some of them half-assed it. And here we are, a prosecutor brought the case to trial and we see all the holes that APD created, and that allowed there to be no justice for these families at the end.
See, I don't want to put it all on APD, because I do think that the DA's office,
the FBI, the GBI, and all these other three-letter organizations.
Right. I do feel like the DA's office works hand in hand with the APD. And I do think that the DA's office has influence over APD and their practices and how they go about things. I'm not sure to what extent or what degree, but
I do want to say that it is definitely like the people who do the investigations are APD. So that is a lot of responsibility on the person that's like, are you the passenger or are you driving? The DA is the passenger in the car, and obviously the investigators are driving the investigation. But so it is on them, and the DA is still responsible as well, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it is ultimately up to the prosecutors to decide whether to bring the case. It's at the end of the day, it's just
and that's the evidence they have, right? Like they bring the case based upon what they're seeing from APD or the detectives or whoever.
Yeah, if somebody says refurbished notebook to you, you need to ask a follow-up question about what is a refurbished notebook. You can't put that person on the stand without knowing the answer to that question. You don't cover. If there are holes and you think you can explain them, that's fine, but you don't just cover them up like that. I mean, I don't get Antonio's point, but it's in Miss Love. So I guess Miss Love was in charge of the team, so I guess the buck stops with her. But every lawyer has a responsibility to not, participate.
I feel like for her, it was never about justice, because I don't know if people realize that Miss Love and Hilton weren't the first two attorneys on this case, right? And from my understanding, the two that were on the case previously took whatever work they had did with the case and took it with them or something to that effect. And so then you had Love and Hilton kind of given this case. But I feel like if you're given it and you can't, again, I don't know 100% about everything, but if you see that this is not gonna be able to be presented properly, and from what you see, there's no justice that can be gotten because there's no factual base for many of the things that they presented.
Yeah.
What then do you have the obligation to continue and just run it till the wheels fall off? Or do you stop it somewhere and say, this has to stop? That's a great lawyer to me, somebody that sees that this is not justice, because that's what they're there for, right?
Yeah, you have to do that. And that's, remember when who's the first person to plead guilty? And it was it Quay? Or was it? Well, anyway, whoever the first person to plead guilty was.
Of the six?
Yeah, not of the whole thing.
Because I was like, well, that's a lot. But no, I think it was Quay.
Yeah. So remember when Whitaker was really not happy about the sentencing recommendation? She, that I think a lot of people took that to mean that she wanted this sentence to be like stronger, like a harsher sentence. But I think what she was, and Brian Steele kind of made this point, was you can't say that this person's, a cold-blooded murderer, who's running guns and selling drugs and in a gang and a conspiracy, but then you are also okay letting them out on the street. That means that you don't think that they're guilty of these things.
The contradiction of it all, right?
Yeah, and if you don't believe that you can get a conviction, you don't really believe, if you don't have a good faith basis to believe that they did it, you have to dismiss it, and it is effectively an admission of misconduct. That's what those guilty pleas were. And I think that kind of played into the Young Thug sentencing, because once they did that, I think that Judge Whitaker was.
They did the same thing, right? They did the same thing to him. They all came with the offer and then decided, well, probation, and I never understood that aspect, is that they're so big and bad, in your mind, or whatever. But then you turn around and say, well, here, I'll let you back on the street anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's nonsense. I'm glad they got released, but it should have been dismissed. I mean, that's what that means.
I too was so surprised by the offer that they gave to Thug. I mean, I don't understand, what type of leverage that I mean, at that point, it was I still don't understand why they gave that offer. It makes no sense to me because I mean the state still had a ton of leverage in that position. I mean, it was honestly unlikely, although Judge Whitaker was bluffing it, that she was going to grant the mistrial, even though that she was inclined to, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. I don't think that she was going to grant it. I think that she may have sanctioned them a little bit more. But I don't think that she was going to grant it. And so I don't understand why they would even offer him that. I'm glad that they did, but it shocked me that that was their offer to Thug, was for him to get out after they had just did a whole year trial. It just makes no sense.
But I don't know if we're gonna, because we have a lot of different videos. But the jurors, and if I can remember, I believe that it was Joseph from AJC. I believe it was his interview with juror 37. If I have to, it
If
should
she
be
was
right.
37, she had to sit to the next 600 people. Oh, terrible.
Juror 37 stated that, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody in the chat, but I was Juror 37. He stated that up until the point that Thug pled, they did not see him as being guilty of anything.
Interesting. That's
I'm gonna pull that up 1 second. They didn't see him guilty of it. They said between him, Shannon, and Diamante, they didn't really see. They said what was presented and how it was presented.
But he was mean to a security guard at a mall in like 2013. So obviously he's the ringleader of a decades-long criminal conspiracy.
Oh my god. When I heard that, I was just like, wow. I don't know what I expected to hear them say when it came to that, but from what we, I call us the public jurors, from what we saw, obviously we saw more than the everyday juror, but I guess through both the lens that we were all looking at, there wasn't guilty. There wasn't Rico. Rico wasn't there. That was the one thing I can say with all the pleas that I was kind of somber about. But who am I, right? This is these people's lives. But I was somber because I'm like, there's no Rico. Rico has to be proven. This is not like it's a Fed case. It was never proven. I was like, I may be just a lay person and not fully understand what Rico means. But from the definition that was given over and over again and how they continue to explain it, I was like, not in this case. I don't see it. I don't see it. And then jurors stated, and I think I'll be able to get to that part in 1 second. They said in this interview, 225 said, all I heard on those wiretaps was a bunch of, people begging for money. Bro, where was the enterprise? Where's the money if this is supposed to be such an enterprise?
I agree with you. I want to say that uh, the RICO part of it is actually, it's remarkable that it came back not guilty. I Like I said before, I could see the logic path of finding RICO.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say, thank God that the case was in Atlanta, because if the case was in the Midwest where I'm at, these boys would have been locked up in a heartbeat, because they don't have the same understanding of culture as these jurors do in Atlanta and in Fulton County. And maybe even if you go to a different county in Georgia, this case is completely different because of the jury pool. And so these jurors that we have or had on this case were amazing, and I'm surprised that some of these people even made it on the jury pool and weren't excluded out, because they seem like they're one of us, that they were in the same spaces that we were in, as we were breaking down the case. It seems like they were right there with us.
Right.
And it's a very cool experience. It rarely does come full circle like this, and we rarely get happy endings like this. And so it's very cool to see. I'm happy to see that they're out in the public, talking their shit. So it's awesome.
Okay,
I'm curious. I'm curious, like, because I know absolutely the prosecutors. I couldn't help it if I was a prosecutor. After finding out that the jurors are speaking on YouTube, I would immediately go watch. I'd have to watch. And I just can't imagine what they're thinking as they're watching this. And maybe even their boss, Fonnie. Like Fonnie's probably watching this and trying to see, what happened in this case. What are they saying behind closed doors? And so I just can't imagine the feeling that they have, because it was very clear from the evidence that this case was winnable for the state, but they screwed it up so bad. And these jurors are so critical of many different aspects of love, of the way that they presented the evidence, the facial expressions. That's just embarrassing as a professional.
I agree. And just to clear it up, it was Juror 71.
71.
Juror 71 said that they did not see. I'm going to actually bring it up. What exactly was said? It was a very good interview. Joseph Papp with AJC. Let's see.
Yeah, I think as far as like the RICO thing, I think the interrelatedness or intersomthingness was always going to be a problem, because everyone's kind of YSL, whatever that is, but you have like one guy selling weed over here, and then a year later somebody sells coke over here, and then there's a fight was involving somebody else, and it's just not a coherent. It's not a thing, It's not it's just some people who know each other who sometimes commit crimes. That's how I see it anymore. Not all of them.
And I see Teresa's comment. She's questioning what I said, winnable for real. She says that, I saw no evidence and it was all we believe. And I agree with you. The problem that I saw with RICO was that there were these crimes that were committed. There were men outside of gas stations with like machine guns. We saw it. What I'm saying is that there are individual crimes that were committed. Connecting them to a RICO like conspiracy is kind of easy under the law. And that's why I was saying that it's winnable in that aspect, but I definitely didn't think that it was actually a RICO. I think that a jury or people who weren't cultured or didn't understand the makeup of the hood, so to speak, on how you can grow up with these boys that are in your that in your friend group, and maybe one of your friends sells this and one of your friends likes to rob X and one of your friends is super clean and likes to do music. They wouldn't understand that dynamic.
Right, now that makes sense. All right, I think I zoomed in too far, but I wanted to be able to see. So I'm going to go down and just kind of read, obviously people can check it on their own, but why not just hear it straight from me, right? So says he spoke to Juror 71 about the YSL trial. Juror 71 told him that they didn't have enough to convict Young Thug, Diamante Kendrick, or Shannon Stillwell. He said he also mentioned that some jurors have the Adrian Love didn't go back to speak to the jury. He felt at a time that she took things personally. Before I continue, what do you think about that? About a juror thinking that, or seeing kind of what we saw again, that she was taking things personal, was not just sticking to facts?
Just her entire being suggests that. The way she just slowly approached the witnesses she didn't like and just get louder and louder.
It's problematic too, because say for example, there are some jurors that are on the state's side. She's kind of communicating with them with all of her head movements, with her body language, and how she reacts in the trial. And so you're not supposed to be communicating with the jury in that type of way, and you just see how dirty she is and how like corrupt her professional responsibilities are. Like
the body language. At some point, she's hitting the back of her head. So I literally realized. So when she does like this in her hand, she's losing it. She's literally like, whatever, something's not going her way. But she has that hand in the back of her head. It's always like something's going wrong. And I felt like if I can see that, I know they can see that. And clearly, from what we're seeing, they definitely saw it and felt
right.
It's like Hilton, and Hilton's about to lie. She'll start shuffling her papers like she's panicking. She does it every single time. Every time. It's kind of funny. She'll start shuffling them and then she'll start reading like from no page. she'll be like between flipping, and it's a pretty
Yeah.
distinct giveaway. The other thing that is, remember when Max said when Love was trying to confuse, I think it was Quindarius Zachary, and Max said, "This is what I'm seeing is disgusting." And then a few minutes later, Love flipped around and said, "Oh, he called me disgusting."
Yeah, she was good at that.
And it was just, she was always good at emerging a victim of her own wrongdoing, and it's more so with, certainly much more so with Glanville, but you know, she was, I feel like at times she was more in control of her emotions and conscious of what she was doing than, you know, just, you know, running.
She reminds me of like Patrick from SpongeBob. You know, it's like, did you eat my pizza? Or yeah, it was just like, yeah.
That was unexpected. That was good though.
So Joseph said that he said he told me that he actually divided up the defendants by days during deliberations. Tuesday, not much deliberation since they started late. Wednesday, Diamante Kendrick charges. Monday, Shannon Stillwell charges. Tuesday, verdict. I guess kind of very to the point. He said that there was one juror who wanted to sleep on the charges against Stillwell on Monday, so that's why the verdict was reached on Tuesday morning. So they said they had already decided about Diamante prior to that, so that's interesting. It says prosecutors.
Sorry. What? If you have to sleep on it, that means it's not guilty. What are you doing? Come on.
I agree.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I
agree. I agree. I thought that from the fact, I told myself that day, I said, if they ask any more questions, it just has to be not guilty. Any more questions, there's too much doubt, because you guys have asked 4 or 5 questions already, and but it made sense once we started watching and they explained the why and things of that nature. When they asked about the lyrics, they explained that somebody asked about the lyrics because English was not their first language, so they didn't understand the lyrics. So it wasn't like they were seriously contemplating lyrics, which made me feel good, but also made me have the aha moment and continue to say this is why lyrics shouldn't be on trial in the first place, especially if the jurors aren't actually going to consider it. So it's like it's kind of a moot issue, you know?
Yeah, I'm glad that this case ended the way that it did, and hopefully that it stops some prosecutors from using lyrics against and young Black men or young men in general. But I don't think that it will.
I actually think it'll amp up, because there's nothing put in place to stop it, which is why the RAP Act, if you're in our YouTube, go ahead, mods, and drop the RAP Act change.org petition so that Congress can go ahead and look at that and sign off on that in your own cities and states. You can push for something like that so that prosecutors in your state can't bring lyrics as evidence in trials. I think that we can hope and pray for Congress, but like Doug Weinstein said, go to your local legislation, push for something to be put in place, because if nothing's in place, that there's nothing that stops them from doing it. And it's not just for rappers; it's for lyrics in general.
Yeah, well, there's the Jimmy Winfrey, one of his things was saying "fuck the judge" in a song, and I think Thugger Daily, I was going to write about it, but then Thugger Daily did it better. He had been when he rapped that, he had just gotten released off of like a coerced guilty plea that was coerced by the judge. So when he's saying "fuck the judge," he's not saying like just in a general like what does he say? Fuck the judge, this is that mob life. And they're talking about like being in a club having fun, and they like twist like talking about like trying to get with girls to killing people, which was something special. But yeah, even if you were to accept lyrics, like it doesn't even come close to saying what they say the lyrics say.
Thanks, so right.
Layers are wrong.
I see a question in the chat. Dat Boy TJ says, what do you guys think about Hilton's tone, posture, and overall voice in closing? I don't know if we touched on that. And I don't think we have. I can touch on it briefly. I likened it to, the loudest person in the room has something to hide, whether it's there's a lot of, different idioms that come from that. The brokest, or the least insecure, or whatever the case might be. But the loudest person in the room has something to hide, and that was the vibe that I got from that. I know that there were a lot of Black women that had a certain perspective on that, and it does seem that she did kind of come out of her professional tone, and come into a more of a
she was acting is what she was doing, and that is why we all spoke on it. She was acting, and it was terrible. It gave Kamala Harris. It gave, I am putting on a front, and I hope that you believe me, and I hope this goes over well. But those that can see me being manipulative, I don't give a care. That is what it gave.
Yeah, I thought that it was ineffective, for the most part. And I mean, great, yell, use persuasive language. But one thing that I thought that was really damning, outside of her tone, and the way that she was saying things, that she was putting out new, hypotheses to.
She was switching it up in the end.
Yeah, and she was saying, well, maybe this could have happened, and maybe that could have happened, and I'm like, we're in the closing argument. You really need to drill in, how you want the jurors to think about
this. But the jurors
this.
didn't take to it well. They said they felt offended. They said they felt, and I think I'll go back to the video on that, but they literally said that they felt offended. They didn't like the way that she was talking. They didn't like the way she came off. And I think, again, that's how many of us felt. And we're not sitting there. Just imagine being in that box while this entire time you've gone all these months and you've been in this certain demeanor, and then here we are in closing, and who is this woman? And why?
Yeah, see,
I'm slow.
In a 2-week trial, that might have worked, but not in a 1-year trial when they've had literally a year to get to know you and get to see how you operate and get to see how you move and get a feel for you. That's probably when it started becoming disingenuous. That's interesting. I'm glad that's what I'm glad that they opined on it and gave kind of their opinion, and then second, I'm glad that they kind of agreed with us.
Yeah, they kind of, even if you look in the indictment, they kind of do this weird code switching thing where they put the defendants as speaking in one vernacular, and then always use sort of that code switching to make it like an us versus them thing between the state and the, if you read, they'll transcribe a spoken conversation and they'll spell, they'll just start spelling things wrong. They spell a lot of things wrong, but they'll just sort of use this code switching in writing that's just bizarre. I know what they're doing, but if it's,
you can kind of feel it. You can feel it when you're reading it. What you're talking about, you can feel that when you're reading it.
They say down instead of them. It's speaking. You just write the words. You don't write DEM. Yeah, it's just gross. And they've been doing this Love's been doing this for a decade. This is nothing new.
Yeah, I heard that from when I was actually down at the courthouse. Some of the people that I was speaking to, as well as, I don't know, the case is over now, so I guess I can say but can't say. But one of the people's attorneys, nobody that was in the room, was actually one of the witnesses, but he said that he has been dealing with Love for over 20 years and that she's a bitch. That was the initial, and that was kind of the sentiments that kind of plays out through Fulton County. So it's not like this case was people's first time seeing her energy on display, but I don't know if this is the first time it's been broadcast to the world that this lady has such an has such an evil spirit. Because when I was able to see her in person at the courthouse, and I think I said this a couple months back when I first went, it was I felt like she had no soul. And I don't know if that makes sense, but she was real cold. And I understand that sometimes lawyers, doctors, people in certain positions are very matter of fact. But it's not about matter of fact. This love does not have a welcoming energy whatsoever. And again, she's at work. She has that demeanor, but Miss Hilton doesn't have the energy. Other people that I spoke to, she is very angry. She's an angry woman.
Yeah. Look in the chat. See if I guessed right.
Let's see.
And Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, they've hate each other for a long time, and he is not afraid to say it. But yeah, there's a case that I started looking into recently. It's from 20. The murder was in 2002, and it was tried in 2013, and the state just destroyed the gun that linked the defendants to the murder crime before the 2012, and that was a love case, and yeah, that's bad. And then she also convinced them that this destroyed gun was the murder weapon when it wasn't. It was.
That's scary. That's not.
Yeah.
And that's what I was just saying this whole time about her cases. Not to cut you off. It's just that this one case, the Rachel Kaufman case,
yeah,
a couple other I've seen, her ethics, and I guess we could talk morale, but it's more so ethics. When you choose to be a lawyer and you choose to take on you're held to a higher standard in your responsibilities. And I don't think that she's ever been, she gets a lot of hand tapping, right? But she's never, from what I've seen, she's never been reprimanded or fully like, hey, you can't do that. But I guess as a lawyer or a prosecutor, somebody's been a judge and somebody's also been defense attorney. And you know how it works when, there's they play different roles or whatever. And I feel like when I watch this case, and I've been saying for months and months and months and months, between Glanville and Love, they had some sort of balance thing going on. And once I feel their head was cut off, which was Glanville being removed, we kind of saw Love kind of fizzle and kind of fall apart. There was nobody else to direct her energy at, because they were having those spats back and forth that I've never seen a lawyer have with a judge in my life.
No, God, no.
And just seeing that.
That was interesting to see. I also want to add to, whenever you're an attorney and whenever you become a member of the bar, like it's your responsibility to uphold the bar, and why I say that is because, you're supposed to hold the other attorneys accountable to the same ethics that you're supposed to follow. And so, if these attorneys in Georgia have witnessed Love and not filed a complaint, and they understand how bad she is, and what type of impact that she's having on the law community, shame on them for not filing a complaint. I know attorneys don't like to do that. They don't like to affect another lawyer's income or their job, but shame on them. At the end of the day, it's your responsibility to the bar and to your fellow lawyers to just like Still said, the world won't fall on I think Jim tweeted this the other day, the world won't fall by I can't remember the exact words, but it was like ousting unethical prosecutors. And that's the stance that all these attorneys should take, and they should take it further by submitting complaints to the Georgia bar.
I agree. Before, I don't want to cut you off, but we have some breaking news per se. Thugger Day just tweeted. It says, Young Thug's lawyer describes Thug's reaction to hearing the not guilty verdict of his co-defendants. He was definitely happy for Yak and Shannon, but there was a touch of regret that he didn't take it all the way. So let's go ahead and play this video.
Yeah, it's natural.
Young Thug's reaction to the verdict.
Be honest. All right. So let me tell you something. Jeffrey called me about 5 minutes after that verdict came down. I'm sitting there in my office. I'm watching it on the live stream. I'm doing some work. I'm excited as hell for Max and Doug and their clients. And I look over, my FaceTime is ringing. And it's Jeffrey. And he's like, oh, man. He's like, his reaction was twofold. He was happy for Kendrick and for Stillwell. Very happy. He was happy that they're coming home. Mm-hmm. There was a part of him, I think, that was thinking, you know what, we probably should have gone all the way, because we would have been walking out of there with a not guilty verdict as well. And I agree, we would have, and we wanted to. Came a point where Jeffrey made a decision that he wanted to go ahead and enter that plea and go home on that day, and he did. But so his reaction, he was happy for them. there was a little bit of regret on his part, but overall, he's still doing great.
Yes.
He's happy to be home. I was talking to him. He's out in California. He's out in LA. So he's doing just fine. He's going to be doing just fine.
Good.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. I'm sure there was a little regret when you hear not guilty, and then you're hearing the jurors talk, and it's like, oh, well, shit. But you don't know. What you don't know, you don't know, and you don't want to gamble your life. When you have prosecutors saying, well, you don't take this, we're going to make sure we give you 75 years and 200 million hours of probation. And, it seems Georgia's very extreme, and I understand that people say, oh, they're criminals and blah, 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 and all this, but it's like giving somebody 15 years probation is like they're still in jail, or giving them 30 years probation in most situations, even offering, hey, how about you stay on our leash for 30 more years? And it's like, that just doesn't sit well.
Yeah. My favorite part of that was the very beginning when he said that he was working, but also watching the trial.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not working full time.
Yeah.
Can't pay attention to work. I also think it's I think that there's something, he revealed something by through pleading guilty that wouldn't have come out. And not guilty, you can just say, oh, the jurors didn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the plea went down, you could see that the state effectively admitted that they didn't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, that's even worse for the state than just a straight not guilty plea. It's worse for him too, but it's maybe unintentional kind of a sacrifice. But there was something good that came out of the plea that wouldn't have happened with a not guilty. Also, this whole thing would have taken 8 months longer.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. It's like once, and I hate to use this analogy, but it's the only one that makes sense. Once the head of the snake is cut off, what else do you have after that? It's like you look at it and you say, well, he pled guilty to gun and drugs charges, so then it couldn't possibly be Kendrick's, Kendrick. And so it's the way the puzzle end up coming together, and I wish that everybody could have gotten not guilty. I say in spirit and morale, I believe that those that took pleas for some of the things that they may or may not have done, I don't think should have happened, but who am I? And I always say that who am I, right? My thoughts mean nothing. But sometimes you can't see the bigger picture when you're in the midst of it all, even though a lot of us from the outside saw and was just like, we see that there's no evidence. And again, like I said, when we hear the jurors saying the same thing and how the evidence was presented, and the fact that they said that the fact that the state chose not to focus on the third car in the Chanel drinks portion of this trial, they said that they felt like they were treating them like they were slow, like they couldn't see that this third car was here, and the fact that the state never said anything about it. The one thing that we were hammering on for the last few weeks is hey, there's a third car there. Hey, but there's a third car. Nobody's saying anything. The jury is sitting there. Now that we know, the jury was like, we see a third car right there, though.
It's there. I don't know what to say. Can't talk about it. And also arguing with your own doctor about the way that death happens is just, what are you doing? You can't argue with your own expert witness about what went down. That's ridiculous.
And why would you ever put yourself in a position to do that? Just call a different witness. Just pay a different expert.
They never wanted to give up. Time. That was the thing. They never wanted. They were not. This prosecution team was not in the business of giving up until that final moment when Hilton started flipping the script during closing and started throwing out other theories, that some of the things that they never even said. I'm still trying to figure out. Let me.
I'm trying to figure out a lot of stuff. There's a lot of questions I have.
Where the jurors, and again, I'll drop some. It's on my page on Twitter, everything I'm speaking about, but they wanted to know why they bought in an Infinity expert, but the jury never saw the Infinity in the video.
I love that expert, man. He was so earnest, he was really trying. It didn't go the way it was supposed to go, but
And that's what I meant by them not giving up, though. At some point, they didn't see the case was taking a left, like, and then a hard left, and then it went all the way around, and then it was like they lost control. I believe they lost control before Woody even got on the stand, to be quite honest. This was a while ago. This was, and that's when I started realizing that things were crazy. And it was before Woody got on the stand. It was during the time, I think, Tick and DK and doing all, just seeing how they were presenting it even back then, it kind of worried me. But I guess I was worried for the wrong things. I was worried that the jury would be so confused that they would find them guilty. But it was the flip. They were so aware, just as aware as we were, that they found them not guilty.
Yeah. The car thing was, no part of that made sense. They're saying, like, he tinted the windows and then they would shoot out of the sunroof.
I never did. You see it? Did you guys ever see a sunroof?
No, I've never heard somebody call a drop top a sunroof. I don't know why you tint the windows and then open the door to shoot. That like defeats the whole purpose. Like,
and that's what I meant, Jim, a couple minutes ago when I said, when does a prosecutor like? When do you call it quits? When do you say, okay, I fucked up?
Like 3 years ago, like years ago.
I mean, you do what Paul Howard did and just not bring the case. You know, it's a shame that Fonnie Bullis brought this case against these boys, and she's really just leveraging the crazy RICO power that they have in Georgia to even bring the case. And you know, it's I wouldn't say that. I don't know. I don't know what the hell she was thinking.
I also feel like they reopened wounds. They reopened wounds as well. Reopened wounds when it comes to the fact that people lost their lives. You know, people lost some of their limbs and things of that nature throughout what may have allegedly happened. But to lie to the families just to be able to bring such a conviction, because I'm sure they played on that energy. When Shamel Drink's family went on Miss Sylvia's show a couple of weeks ago and said that they knew that they didn't have anything and they knew that they didn't have anybody. That hurt. That was kind of like, wow. And to know that they knew, but they had to sit back and watch it happen. To know that they promised or allegedly promised Donovan Thomas's family that they were going to get justice. And then essentially played in these people's face. That sucks. It's the taxpayers' dollars. It's the waste of time for the families and reopening wounds. It's dragging people along for however long. It's missing watches and Lamborghinis. It's, $25. This whole case has just been not a day has gone by that there wasn't something. It's like I don't think that there was ever just one smooth day in this trial.
No, and there's one thing. The thing that I kind of want to not push back against you, but it's just kind of the narrative is that it's like sloppy, that their state's being sloppy. And sometimes they are, but a lot of times it's really specific and precise the way they omit things. Like with the lyrics, they like cut a line in a specific place. Mm-hmm. And it's not an accident. They know what they're doing. It's, not every time, but a lot of the times it's calculated. And I'm glad that was.
But do you think with this it was miscalculated? Because if they were going after conviction, that's not what they presented this for. And I understand what you mean, because even with the lyrics, and again it's strategy, and I get it. So they would take like certain parts of a lyric and then put it next to something that had nothing to do with the previous lyric, but put it in the way to tell whatever story they wanted to tell. So it's kind of deception, right? But I guess when you're a prosecutor, I should say, when you're a prosecutor, it's by any means necessary. So in their mind, they didn't give a care how they were presented. As long as it sounded, this is the story, these are the facts, this is what we're going to give them. Yeah.
I mean, the crazy thing with the lyrics was, everything they did was wrong. I mean, I agree with you. That's the problem with prosecution everywhere, is just when by any means necessary. And getting a conviction means getting justice. But that's not always the case. But I mean, there's one verse in one of the lyrics where Duke he talks about being a Crip for like several bars, and they just cut that part out, and they make it a YSL thing. Like it's explicitly not about YSL, like the gang. It's just and that's not a mistake. I mean, it's not about prosecutors are rewarded for winning, but you can't stay that way.
Yeah. So somebody said, that boy T said, and we keep it real over here. They said, "What about Nut's mom seeing the no evidence, but still upset with everyone except for the prosecutor?" And we did hear that when we first came on and we listened to the video. She said she's not mad at the prosecution, but it seems that everyone else is but her.
I suspect that that'll change.
You think?
I think that her anger is going to be obviously with the verdict because it's so fresh. I think that I think that she is soon going to switch that anger towards the prosecution, how they brought the case. Once she realizes, once the sting of the verdict, the not guilty verdict is doesn't hurt so bad.
That makes sense.
You're just, I've never been through that, but I have to imagine you're not in the most rational, reasonable state of mind. That sort of trauma will affect you, so.
For sure.
I don't want to accuse them of feeling a certain way. It's just it's healing. It is what it is.
I agree. I do have one video that I wanted to go ahead and play really quickly. Well, I guess it wouldn't be really quickly, but I'll make it quick. Woody went on TikTok. I want to say yesterday. And so we're going to go ahead and play a little bit of that. And I know that you have to drop off soon, Antonio. So if you drop off in the middle of me doing this, I definitely appreciate you for coming by tonight. It has been great to have you again. That this is just in case you have to go in the midst of, doing
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I know that the chat appreciates you being here, and I always appreciate you for stopping by. I know you guys.
Yeah, it was good to see you. Yeah, it was good to see you, Empress. It was good to see you, Jim. Always lovely hanging out with you guys, and so thank you very much. I think I'll watch this video and then I'll jump off.
Okay, for sure. Let's see. I think I started in the right place.
Other than just you generally, I think my favorite
to me it was a year.
My favorite moment might have been when you wheeled the woman in a wheelchair. Because it was so priceless. It was so priceless.
As soon as I saw that, I was like, I had to do a double take. I was like, is that
really him?
Seriously wheeling someone in a wheelchair? I was like, the state, and you're just walking past the state, and they're like,
the level of not giving a fuck was just the level of not giving a fuck about that was just priceless. I loved it so much.
Yeah, because they don't drag my family down there. I don't know nothing about it. And then my sister down there having a panic attack. And y'all tell me y'all gonna force her to get on there? I go down there and to break everything I can break.
Yeah.
And I told them I came down here because my sister said she gonna plead the fifth. And when she go to jail, I'm gonna make y'all take me to jail with her.
I remember watching your live while you were out there with your sister, and I was like, because again, so I'm a defense attorney in Georgia, and so seeing that, I was like, this is fucked on every level. Like, I mean, there is not a single thing that.
Well, there was nothing to be gained from having her there. So it felt like they were just messing with her. Yeah. So I loved that you were just messing with them when you rolled on in. It was just so stupid and pointless.
Yeah, because it's like, y'all subpoenaed the whole Atlanta, Georgia. For what?
To lose.
We're still wondering.
Now, they didn't, you gotta understand, y'all think they lose, right? They don't lose because at the end of the day, they're keeping the mess going. They're still putting the fire to the flames, and they're sitting back like, well, if we can't get them this way, we'll get them that way. What a coincidence! They doing certain stuff when they feel like things ain't gonna go their favor. They just pop up, or that pop up. They've been doing this for years. You feel me? Like everybody be scared to speak on it. Man, I don't care. I accept my faith. Y'all run up. Let me shut up.
And that's I see it in my own county, here in Georgia.
So, in hearing that, what do you guys feel about the state star witness and I think a lot of us remember that moment. I don't know if you guys saw that was when they pretty much subpoenaed his entire family over like a 2-day period, and they told his sister that if she didn't get on the stand, she was going to go to jail, which is what they told every single witness that came in there. We saw them, guys say, well, you came in and you guys, are you done harassing me at my job now? You had Miss started with the B, but she was sexually harassed. It was just like every single witness that they subpoenaed, they threatened. It's like they weaponized the judicial system for their own benefit. Which again, I understand that prosecutors do what they want to do, whatever. But at what point does it become harassment? When you hear Woody say, well, they subpoenaed the whole Atlanta. And I've been saying since, I've been talking about this case, that Atlanta's not that big. It seems like a big city because you talk about it in conversation with Chicago and New York City and California, but Atlanta's not that big. So when you, and I was seeing some of those videos and we see, they talk about Mechanicsville and people don't realize Mechanicsville is only so many blocks long. And you talk about these certain areas. This is not like a huge place. So a lot of people know everybody and everybody knows everybody, right? And so when we see this star witness come and speak and say, if you take my sister to jail, you got to take me to jail too. It's, because what is everybody going to jail for? For not speaking, for holding their Fifth Amendment right or seeking to hold their Fifth Amendment right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking in terms of like weaponizing the judicial system. I think about the time that Love played that phone call with Quindarius Zachary's dad, and it's just the investigator just like threatening him with arrests and screaming. Well, it wasn't always audible, but it was very loud, and Love thought that was
we got the vibe
good, that it made it look good. It wasn't. That's the weird part, was that she thought it made her side look like they were in the right, and that's just.
I think that was that personal, taking it personal that the jury said that they felt from her, that she took everything personal, and for a jury to say that.
Yeah, I mean, she did.
That's crazy. What do you think, Antonio? Hearing Woody say that?
It's problematic, and I'm wrestling with it internally. At what point is it unethical, or is it ever unethical as a prosecutor to be dragging people in to testify in a trial under duress? I'm trying to think about when that is appropriate and when it isn't, and under what circumstances. It feels off. I get that the state needs to have a means to prosecute crimes that would require them to bring in less witnesses that don't want to testify. But at what point is it unethical to do that? And in what cases, what types of cases is that appropriate? I don't know. Those are tough questions, and tough answers. Would take a lot of probably a paper to figure that out. But it just sounds off, and I think that things that sound off like that really do need a second pass of discretion. So. But I will say that's not something that's unique to Georgia. They'll do that anywhere. So,
yeah, I think this. People talk about, like on Twitter, they'll say that this case is going to be taught in law school. Like, probably won't, just because it's such an outlier case that
and so many things went wrong.
Yeah, and like I think part of the thing with this case is like every witness was like that, and it's not just in this case. It was like witness after witness that didn't want to be there. That was a hostile witness. And I think that's what struck. I mean, if you have one or two witnesses that, you get a subpoena to get them to come in, that's, it happens. But when it's every single one and you're just impacting all these people's lives, it's just collectively, it's just something that's entirely. But yeah, Antonio's right. I mean, it's going to be so fact dependent that it's hard to, come up with like a bright line rule.
Right. Teresa says from the chat says there's still nothing stopping them from continuing to use these tactics. And I agree. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's like we can see these things happening, but what are the ramifications or the repercussions from bending the law and to fit your narrative or to, because we can all see this, well, Antonio, this was wrong and this and that, or, well, they lied and, well, that's not what they said. And, well, what happens from all of these revelations? Where do we go from there? Well, what happens from there?
I will say that the conduct of your prosecutors, wherever you're at locally, is going to be, wholly responsible to the district attorney of that office. And in a lot of places, we elect district attorneys. And so it goes back to your vote and how much your vote matters, and how much these elections matter. And, I think that of course, I've fallen short in my local elections on being involved. But that's another thing that we can learn from this case, amongst many other things to learn, is that your local elections really can impact your city, and just like Atlanta was impacted by Fonnie Willis. So just a reminder to go vote and to be involved in your local elections, because they're clearly more important than we can ever think.
I agree.
And with that, I'm going to drop, guys. It was nice talking to you.
All right. Thank you for coming. Have a good night.
Get vote for judges too, if you have elected judges.
Yes, and I can say from being in Chicago, we don't have a district attorney, but we have a state's attorney, which I believe may be the same thing. But Kim Foxx she decided to not run again, so there's a new state's attorney in, and the people do not like her, and Chicago is revolting something serious here. So I agree. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
First of all, Kim Foxx is a great name, but what was the issue with the new? What don't people like?
Let's see. I'll tell you. Not to go off topic, but it makes sense. 1 second. So we're talking about local elections.
No, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was just curious.
Oh no, you're fine. No, it's nothing. And if I don't know something, there's Google.com will tell me whatever.
That's what I'm talking about.
One moment. There she is.
Yes, we can move on. We have to.
Because I probably look crazy looking into this camera because I'm not looking into the camera, but it's all good. I don't know the exact. Her name is Eileen O'Neill, and Eileen O'Neill. It's just that she's coming in and picking up where Kim Foxx left off, and I feel that when it comes to these positions, we talk about the district attorney and state's attorney and things of that nature. I don't think that anybody thinks that anybody is good enough for any of these positions, if that makes any sense, right? Because somebody has to be the bad guy, and the bad guy sometimes means putting your foot down, right?
Yeah.
Don't like that. And sometimes you flip it, and then it's, now you're too lean on crime, and you're not hard enough, and where's the balance?
Yeah, that's the thing with anytime you try to reform something, as soon as somebody gets murdered, you're going to get blamed for it. If you do bail reform and then a million extra people get out on bail, and then one of them kills somebody, it's going to be brought up as a failure. But statistically, no, that worked. That's you're right, but it's not never going to be spun that way. So people need to think about. Don't make decisions based on one thing that happens, because that's people commit crimes. You have to look at the big picture.
That is true, and I want to say something, and this people may think I'm really, 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 really crazy, and I've been wanting to say this about 2 or 3 weeks. I had a discussion with somebody because I was doing my research. I'm actually gonna pull this off really quick. So I was doing my research on Fonnie Willis, right? and there's good and bad in anything, right? And so my final conclusion to it all is that she's not a bad person per se, or even maybe not even a bad district attorney. She's done some very, very questionable things, but from what I've been researching and kind of trying to delve into, but some things are kind of sketched because there's not a lot of information, lots of talking points. But I'll say from a talking point, she's has these diversion programs that she's created. And I feel like if she asked for more money for things like that, like diversion programs and actually going into the community to be able to stop people from coming into prisons, right? But that's that bad guy thing I was talking about. And if we stop people from doing bad or stop people from doing things, then you lose our jobs because then there's nothing else for us to do, right? But the money that she's finagling or whatever, she has these programs that she's put in place, but she's only been in there for going on 4 years at this point. And I see what she's trying to do. However, her execution is pretty shitty, right? And that's just how I see it from a outsider's perspective. And when I looked at this case in general, and I'm like, yeah, well, no, she shouldn't have brought the case, right? But she's not the person in the courtroom trying this case. The thorn in the side this entire time is really Miss Love. And I had to come to that kind of and of course we have the entire prosecution team, right? But Miss Love is the head of that team, or it appeared to be, at some point. Yeah. But I had to really sit back and I was like, I had so much anger towards Fonnie, and the anger was there because she brought the case up in general, right? I feel like the case had never been put for a jury, right? But then it's here now. Boom. It's up to the prosecutors that are now on the case, whether they were the original prosecutors or they were the prosecutors that came after. It's up to them to present the case accordingly. Or for me, when you look at it and you say, well, A, B, and C is not matching D, E, and F. What are we going to do from here? And remember, I was asking that earlier, like at what point, if you see that there's no justice truly behind what you have, or there's no evidence that says guilty, or there's something that says maybe there's another killer, or maybe there's another, perpetrator or something like that, at what point do you stop and say, we got it wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's they're both Love and Fonnie. I mean, Fonnie's name is on pretty much every paper that is filed.
And that's why I said it's the catch-22. I'm like, you're doing so good, but shit, you suck at the same time. It's like,
I mean, that's
because it's the ethics for me, or the lack thereof. That's
you can't. Oh, sorry. So you don't get to be in charge of the team and get the credit and go in press conferences and talk about rap lyrics, and then, if it doesn't work out, say, oh, it's the prosecutors. I mean, I agree. I'm sure she has things that she. No, it's the kind of classic story. Like, you start with good intentions, and then you do this one prosecution you're not sure about, and then another one, and then all of a sudden this becomes a twisted thing. But
I agree. Teresa said Fonnie ran on getting gangs, put herself in the limelight, and put this case and let others sit for years. I agree, and that's where I'm kind of hung on the It's not even a fence because I don't like the lady, right? But I was trying to find the because I feel like Fonnie answers to somebody, and I could be wrong. Maybe she doesn't answer to anybody, but I was trying to figure that out, right? And so that's when I came to the conclusion when we were talking about this case. I'm like, maybe it is Love. I was trying to figure out where shit went wrong outside of the initial, hey, we're going to bring this case to trial, right? But as Teresa's saying, and it makes sense that she ran on the whole gang thing. So that's her push. But outside of that, she's also pushing all these RICOs. You got RICOs on teachers and RICOs on protesters and RICOs on. It was just like she's like, I like this RICO thing. Let's just tie all these things together and knock it out. But in doing so, you held back so many other cases. You held back progression, right? But they had what was called when I did my research called Operation Orca. And Operation Orca or Project Orca, whatever. I felt like it was Operation, but Operation Orca, they got all this money, right? Because they got money during COVID. And this is all facts. This is all I can pull everything up. I did a whole whiteboard. But this money that was given during COVID, a portion of it, I want to say it was about $5 million or so, went into Operation Oregon. It was for them to be able to clear the backlog of cases that they had, right? So they started with 6 figures in cases that they were behind. And it was interesting because this project ran all through 2023 and ended in January 2024. But as I was looking at the numbers, as of now, they are supposedly only 17,000 behind in cases, which sounds like not a lot, but that's a lot of cases to still be behind. 17.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, I'm like, and then we talk about it's Atlantic and it's a small place, so 17,000 started 6 figures, but they started collecting the data. I want to say in March or April of last year, and I'm just wondering because it didn't really say the how they got those cases down. I'm wondering how many cases were tossed out, how many cases took pleas, how many to take away since like 120,000 cases in less than a year. How did you really get rid of all those cases? Things like that is what made me question Fonnie's ethics and her team and how they are operating.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things we were going to. I don't know if we're going to get to it. But we were talking about like Yak and Shannon. They both have multiple open cases. I mean, I think one of Shannon's cases from like 2021, and it just sat untouched until for years. I mean, that's not a money thing. That's somebody charged it and then put it in the drawer and left it alone one day. And I don't think money, like obviously money will help you clear a backlog, but
they're acting like that's what it is. It's all about money for them. You got Labat coming in, hey, can we get more money for overtime? You have Fonnie coming in, hey, we need more money for programs and this and that. But as the financials that I looked at from Fulton County's financials, they don't have a money problem. They have a mismanagement problem.
Yeah,
it's total mismanagement. They're getting the money. The money is there. What they're doing with the money and where the money disappears to, and what you can see on the flip side of that money is just it's not there.
Yeah,
you're right. It's
money,
not an issue.
It always helps. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, you only have so many judges. You only have so many courtrooms. If that's the bottleneck, more money isn't going to fix that.
I agree.
Qualified DAs, they're not going to move any faster. It's a decades-long problem. It's not a COVID problem. I'm sure COVID didn't help.
Yeah,
but,
the commissioner came in and said, because I think they were asking for more money because the program was ending. The commissioner came in of Fulton County and said, he said, well, they knew the program was ending and they knew that it was only a temporary program. So they're asking for more money. They're not going to get it. And it's like, because again, that's what Fonnie and these various people keep saying that they're missing, and Solicitor General and all these other individuals, they're saying that they need more money. We need more money. Like you said, it's not that it's not. It doesn't do any less harm, and obviously may allow more resources. But at what point do we see the funneling of the money, and where is it going? And it seems like laundering at some point. When you see $5 million here, $500,000 there, 100,000 going here, and it's like, all right, but where are the results from any of this money going into things? Right, accountability. There, the audits. Where are the audits? Where if you've been in office 4 years and you, at this point, we're at the end, and people are asking requests for your financials and for this and that, and you can't even provide the bare minimum of giving various agencies and people that are requesting your financials that, but you want to keep asking for more money?
Yeah, and the other thing is
clean up Fulton County.
Yeah, I posted something from one of Shannon's indictments, and one of his charges is for having 18 Newports in jail.
I saw.
You paid a lawyer. You paid a salaried lawyer to write that. Like that was time that could have gone to clearing a misdemeanor. I mean, somebody took I'm assuming at least an hour to put together the indictment, probably several hours, and his earbuds and some cigarettes. and it's, first of all, it was still filled with mistakes, but even so, like, you can't misallocate your resources like that. And then,
when I saw you highlight that, my mouth dropped. I was just like, I don't know if I had not seen this paperwork before or something.
Well, I hadn't seen it. I hadn't looked at it before.
Yeah, and I was like, Newports, when you said Newports, AirPods, and stuff, and I was just like, I understand it is jail. So if everybody's watching, I'm not saying that, you should have what you want, but
yeah,
I don't even have words. I literally have no words. It's because at this point, those gentlemen could be walking free right now. And again, it's not just Shannon and Yak. This is lots of people in lots of jails all across the country. But right now, we're seeing this case, and we're seeing these gentlemen just got not guilty and pretty much told you can go home, but they can't go home because they still have charges pending from being in jail for this case, right? In the last 2 years, they've not only that, these men have been stabbed and have been approached and have gone through all this to, at the end, you've been deemed not guilty, but you've been fighting for your existence these past 2 years to just stay alive to get to this point, and now you're still stuck there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about, remember the when Shannon was stabbed, both he and the attacker were, I mean, nobody in there has been convicted for the most part, but they were both, in pretrial. Neither of them had been convicted. So obviously Shannon's the victim, but now that you have this other guy that's going to have to face, I assume, some kind of probably additional trial or additional, plea process on that. And it's just, everything compounds, and it's just a mess. It's a cultural thing, and throwing money at the problem is not going to help.
I agree. What would you say? And I say, take off your law hat, take off, you're just as a human being.
Yeah.
What? Because I hear a lot of talk, prison reform and this, that, and the third, and that's great. But what? And then that's not to this. I hear sometimes I come out very aloof, but I'm just, that's a great thing. But I think that there's not a sense of urgency when we talk about reform, when we talk about prison, when we talk about our judicial system. I feel that everything moves in ancient time and everything moves so slow. But what's the one thing that you would say or that you would like to see when we talk about humanity and constitutional rights when it comes to jail and prisons?
Yeah, I mean, definitely in this case, it's just bail. I mean, people need to be getting out on bail, and it's, to me personally, it should be either you get out or you don't get out. There shouldn't be a bail thing, because it's just not, if you think they're a danger, then don't let them out. And if you don't think they're a danger, I think I said that backwards, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, because they'll say no bail, but here's a plea deal.
Yeah, if you're saying you get $1 million bail, then it just becomes about whether the person can get a bond for that amount. It has nothing to do with safety. So, if somebody's genuinely dangerous and you have reason to believe that, then okay, fine. But more people need to get out of bail. It's just, I think the average time in Rice Street is like 1.2 years or something like that. And that's going to just, even if you're innocent and you're a normal guy, that's still going to destroy any career you have. You're going to have to start over, probably in a different line of work. And now we're talking you and your kids. So bail it's a huge deal. And, you could get
people in jail right now because they can't afford to even get out. They may be very well innocent.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting there. And in Chicago, we have cash bail now, or I think that's what it's called. They got the terminology is so funky to me, but pretty much it. You know how we talk about there's good and bad with everything, right? So it's great that people are able to get out, but in Chicago, like, if you go to jail now, you'll get right out, right? And they tell you, oh, well, show back up to court in XYZ time. But during that time, so many of those same people are committing crimes during that time of being out. And then they go back to court and they get another slap on the wrist because we've gotten so lenient here. And that's what I mean about finding that balance. There's no chase clause here, so police can't chase you, right? And so when you go to jail, they're letting you write out, and it's like I feel like they had the right idea.
Yeah.
The discernment and the actual execution of the plan just wasn't adequate. That's just, and so then I look at this situation and they're not giving bail out at all. And then it's not only here, it's across the country where bail may be only $100, right? But somebody can't afford that $100. There's 100 people that can't afford the $100. Everybody's just there, and now you're in harm's way. You're there in mental, instability for being there for so long. Or like it's such a mind fuck.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe you miss like one day of work, but you don't call and you don't show up and they fire you. It's that could be months or years to get back on track. So yeah, I mean, if that's the one thing, that's what I would say is
bail bond.
Figure out what to do. Are they guilty? Or are they guilty? Are they a danger or are they not? It's clear that Fulton County, or not Fulton County, a lot of places use it as leverage. Make them miserable until they plead out, and then
that's punishment, though. That's punishment before punishment.
Yeah, for sure.
Before the punishment, and that's where I get. It seems like even with this, they're like, "Oh, if you don't show up as a witness, we're going to send you straight to Rice Street," and it's like it's a torture. It's a literal torture chamber, and according to the Department of Justice, that's exactly what's happening there. And that's what I meant by them weaponizing the judicial system. They're not the only people that's doing this, and obviously we're only calling this is what's in front of our face right now. But I just, when I look at this case, and I look and I hear the jurors say, "Oh well, we would have said not guilty anyway because of X, Y, Z," and people that have now signed, their life away, and it's because they were tired. They were tired. A lot of them were tired. A lot of them were ready to go, and that's fully understandable. But to know that most of the jurors, and that's probably why I think juror 56 came out at the end. He was just like, "Look, how much longer do we got of this mess?" Because it is, when they did that, when he did that, I knew that it was not guilty off that. But obviously I could, I didn't know. But it made sense to me. I'm like, he's tired. He's over it. I feel like he was speaking for many of them. And once I watched the various interviews, we were all about right. When it came to how it was presenting. And at first I was like, well, they're overwhelmed. But really, they were underwhelmed. These people were underwhelmed. They weren't overwhelmed. They were underwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, if you just don't believe anything or just don't trust the state, then it doesn't matter what they show you or what their witnesses say, because you just don't trust them. And so nothing that your mind's just made up. There's nothing that they can put on that's going to convince you beyond a reasonable doubt. And based on what I've seen now, it seems pretty clear that happened a while ago. Get rid of the gang unit too. You don't need all these units. They have so many units.
I have so many units that aren't being productive. Like there's no productivity with it, and the productivity that's there, it's unconstitutional. So you're just putting bullshit together, like the girl has on her Boys in the Hood shirt. So clearly that was such a joke to them. That's why I think, and people are always asking why we're laughing about this case, and yes, it's very serious, but the players in this what Antonio says, a reality show. The players in this reality show were just bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny. Like, it's ridiculous. They're unserious people. Burritos on Instagram for hours at a time, which sounds great. I want that job. I'll take it. But
Burrito, we want to watch this. We just want to watch.
I want to either give it back or lean into it and just be like really flagrant about it and just start flashing it on YouTube. Instagram.
We saw the one officer that came on a stand. He had the. I don't know if that was a team move or if that was, but that was. I don't know how many officers got money for them type of watches, but that's not my business to be counting pockets. I do want to mention something though. I see Teresa said, and it makes sense, the why. Why are they selling drugs in the first place? Why are they robbing? Underlying motivation. I agree. That is a great question.
Sure.
And I think that's one of those 2, 3, 4, 5 voted questions. When I look at, and again, this is just my opinion, but coming from, like, say, the city of Chicago, right, where I'm from.
God, we know you're from Chicago. Get it. You love Chicago.
All day, and I will say that forever because people always ask, and so now I'm like in a habit of constantly saying I don't normally do that, but being from here and being in what I would call the inner city versus when I go to somewhere like, and I hate to make the comparison, but like Alabama or Atlanta or Mississippi or somewhere like that, there's, from what I've seen, there's a difference. You have the hood, you have poverty, you have just, a mix of not having the resources. There's levels, I believe, to certain things, right? And when there's no resources, when you're taking away schools, when you're taking away certain ways with the way families used to raise their children, the way just money and inflation and all these things, right? Because drugs have been sold since the 70s, right? Since gas was $1.50. So it's I think the why is so.
It's so broad.
It is, and I'm trying to tiptoe, tiptoe because there's so many levels. The why is, like you said, broad. It's very broad, and I believe, and I speak about it often, about somebody being the bad guy. The bad guy is somebody actually putting their foot down, not biased, but saying this is how we're going to run this, and this is how it's going to be. Right? We focus so much on freedom in America, but what does freedom really cost us?
I think the state needs a bad guy who will put their foot down for them, and not the state putting their foot down. And one of the things that's not funny but notable about this case is when I'm like doing record searches, there have been so many times where I've confused one defendant for their father.
Mm-hmm.
Because
that's
time after time. Mm-hmm. And I think about Trontavious Stevens and telling the story about how he got introduced to gangs when he was 11 because he was sent to juvie.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not a moral failing of his. He's 11. He's being taught about the Bloods, I guess, sex, money, murder, and all that stuff, and selling weed. Like he never had a chance. And looking at this trial, it wasn't better 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's certainly this. I'm not saying that nobody has any agency or autonomy ever, but that stuff builds over time, and
right.
You can't fix everything at once. You just have to fix this. For me, anyway. I mean, this is what.
But I feel like things have been getting
fixed. The jail's better now.
Years. Like, and I think that's where it drives me, not necessarily insane, but it drives me to all these questions because I'm like, there have been so many organizations I'm 37, so over the past 20 years of me consciously seeing and knowing how slow is slow enough for change to happen.
I mean, it needs to be changed. Yeah. It's not just going to happen. I mean, there's concrete things we can fix now. I mean, I say we. I don't live in Georgia, but in this case,
yeah, no, I feel you. No,
in California, we have our own problems, which actually is incredibly harsh on crime state, despite what everybody on the internet says. Mm-hmm. Like the harshest in many ways. But yeah, there's specific things, and we get lost in how do we fix, generational poverty, and mm-hmm. You can't fix that, but you can fix one thing, and maybe one factor.
We can fix things moving forward. We may not always and at all be able to fix the past, but we can create something different moving forward. And I think that's when we talk about the people putting their foot down, people are afraid to say, stop. We got to stop. Everybody's so intertwined. Corporate America is intertwined with politics. It's intertwined with religion. And it's like, somebody in each thing seems to be afraid of losing. And I talked about this yesterday, losing what they built so much, be it friendship, be it personality, be it wealth, be it resources, this and the third, to be able to put their foot down and actually create change.
Yeah.
What judge in Fulton County is going to say enough?
Yeah,
what
I mean,
another district attorney is going to say enough? Finally, we can't keep moving like this.
I think that these cases being on YouTube this specific case being on YouTube is definitely going to change the way judges treat the county prosecutors now. There's no way, because they don't want to look stupid. They don't want to look like Glanville. They don't want to have their name. They don't want to sentence somebody.
Chief judge.
Yeah. I don't think that's like a huge thing there. I don't know specifically. But,
yeah, I've been hearing that over the past couple months. Like, that means nothing. That means squat.
It means something, but it doesn't mean like,
what a lot of us thinks it means.
Yeah, I think you like have some say like administrative stuff, like distributing cases and stuff like that, which can matter. But
okay.
I imagine it's like, oh, shit, I could be the chief judge again. I have so much.
I don't think he's running again, is he? If I'm not mistaken, I don't think he's.
I think it's a cycle. I think it's like you take turns. I'm not sure though, but I think it is.
Hold on. I have to check.
That guy got broken by this case. I'm convinced.
Not broken. He got broken.
Broken in the way that like Hilton by closing. That like I can't do this anymore. Obviously, he's still like capable, but lost his patience.
Oh yeah, so his current term ends on December 31st, 2024. He ran for re-election for judge of Georgia 5th Superior Court District in Atlanta. He won, but he's deciding that he does not want to go forward.
Oh, is it being done as a judge entirely?
I
mean, I get it.
I mean, he won. He won in the general election, May 21st, 2024, and then just decided to.
What happened between May and December of 2024? I get it, man.
That is interesting.
He took a lot of blame. I just mean I think he was over it. I don't think his reputation probably took a hit.
Right, Teresa said he got exposed. I agree. For the little bit that he did, and you're right. If he won in May, between May and now, he's just like, I'm good. Because I think, again, we saw a lot of these cases are televised and a lot of them aren't. But I think that this case put Fulton County on blast.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know if it was the Trump case. I really believe it was because this case showed, you have the RICO against Trump and it bled over into Fonnie's personal, but this case also bled over into her personal. I'm not here to the rumors or the
It's not a rumor.
I'm not going to. I'm just saying, it opened up Fonnie opened up a can of worms on Fulton, which is I don't even think it's a bad thing. I think it's an amazing thing because now they have to be held accountable. When you see the Department of Justice comes in, and that's what I was speaking about. People were asking like, what else am I going to do outside of the protesting? Well, I want to and are working with some organizations that are down there and see how we can get the DOJ to come in and really look into Fonnie Willis and Miss Adrienne Love. Because their practices seem so unethical that I don't think not only have they violated people's constitutional rights, but I believe that they violated the law as well. So there are steps, and again, it's like you said, something that doesn't happen overnight, but there are steps.
That can happen overnight.
Yeah, exactly.
The FBI can definitely put something together overnight.
Yeah, I was gonna say they have the means to, absolutely. But what light is shined for them to say, okay, let me check that out. Somebody just mentioned Tiffany Henyard, who is the mayor of an area out here of Dalton, Illinois, and it took them over the last year, to really kind of delve into it. And now they've gotten her out as the head of township, and all this stuff. And like you said, it takes time. But we've been watching Fonnie just evade subpoenas and evade this and evade that and switch this and do this, and it's like, and then just to go have a birthday party, that costs thousands of dollars to attend, and it's like, where's the person to take her to the principal's office? It seems like that person, she keeps tossing them to the side, like, I'm not going.
Yeah, I mean, she got what, like 70% of the vote a month ago. I mean,
I think those are people that are voting because they hear her name. Like, you've heard her name a million times, and I say that only because
I have heard her name a million times, so many times, so many press conferences.
Yes, and we were talking about it over this period during like spaces and just talking about how a lot of the people that voted for her, were obviously the Democratic Party. She had the NAACP behind her. She had the elders in the community, that were at the churches. She showed up to people's churches. She showed up to things like that, and kind of shook hands and kissed babies, as they say, right? But the people, though, that percentage that voted for her, when you go into, because I'm guilty of, right? I'll go into place my vote, and now some of the names I know, a lot of names I don't know. And sometimes I vote based on a name that sounds familiar, and I'm just being honest. If I hadn't, because there's so many different races and
for sure.
this and that, you can't remember it. So I honestly think that they voted for her simply because they've heard her name so much. But when you also see her name versus Courtney Kramer, and she's a white Republican, and you're in Atlanta, Georgia, it's kind of it's an easy swoop. It's.
I had some things to say about that today.
Oh, I'd love to hear. We'd all love to hear, wouldn't we, guys?
She's exactly the same as Fonnie. She's exploiting this case just like everybody, just like Fonnie is. It's like it's two sides of the same coin. They're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
They're exploiting it in their own way, but one isn't in power, so they're going to exploit the person who is in power. It's the same thing.
I can see that.
Yeah, she tweeted about the thing that she said the not guilty verdicts were a bittersweet Christmas present or something like that, and it was bittersweet. And she mentioned like the waste of taxpayer money, the waste of time for the jurors and the defendants, and she tagged Thugger Daily. And then she said "free thug" as a hashtag, and I'm like, none of this makes sense. You didn't actually name a defendant, like name or an ex-defendant, like say their names, like there's a whole bunch of people that are still haven't had a trial yet. You can say something.
Hindsight is a very interesting.
It's so exploitative. She's been exploiting this thing the entire time.
And it's crazy because I heard people saying that, and people were telling me that, and I believe that I was so angry at Fonnie. But again, there's not like there was much else outside of voting for her, because the gentleman that ran against her earlier this year, he lost really fast, right? So if we're being told, or we're telling people the only way to get Fonnie out is to vote her out,
I gave her a chance. Like, I thought she was interesting as an option.
Yeah.
2 months ago. After a while,
It was when, you know what? I'm not even gonna say that. I'm gonna let it go.
I'll say one. When she said she was gonna let everybody, she was gonna end all the prosecutions.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good idea. There are one or two people in there that you need to keep prosecuting those.
And that's what I mean about the discernment. That's.
I'm not going to name any names, but there are some.
I'm not. Yeah, no, we're here.
Don't let some of those people out. One or two of them.
Yeah.
Definitely guilty.
Yeah, we were all saying, oh, all the killers are walking free, which a lot of them are. A lot of them are, but there were, when I look at, and I've been saying since the beginning that I don't think that everybody in this case was innocent, right? I never walked around and said, oh, everybody's innocent. For me, it's always been about people's constitutional rights from the beginning, right? And
most of them,
the witnesses, it's everybody's rights were violated all throughout and through this case, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't never about that. But people are always saying, well, some of them, I'm like, I didn't say that they weren't guilty. I've never said that.
Like, Young Thug definitely does Molly. He says it.
He says it, Jim.
He talks all the time. It's like, yeah, that's why, I made the song. It's because Molly. Like, he had Molly in his house. If you want to charge him for possession, like, that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do that. But, like, he did it. That's not what he was charged with. But, like, it's just, this prosecution is just so disconnected from what anybody did or didn't do. You know?
And that's why it was interesting to hear juror, and I think I would mess it up again, but I believe I'm not mistaken, it's on juror 71, say that what was presented by the state told the jurors that Thug, Shannon, and Diamante were the only ones not guilty. What's crazy though, from our perspectives the entire time, that's kind of how I felt throughout the whole thing. It was kind of like there wasn't enough to solidify those three. And even before we saw like the Shamil drinks and all that, so I didn't know all that. But then once we saw the videos and we saw that, I was just like, well, that's not a guilty. You know, it's again the way they presented it, but they also didn't present it. They left room for that reasonable doubt by the way they presented the case.
Like I wasn't even entirely clear on what they thought happened or what they were saying happened. Like the window tinting thing again, they said that it was part of a plan to like kill somebody, but then they just ran into Shamel Drinks randomly. So he just happened to run into the victim after renting the car and tinting the windows, just fortunately. And then there were just a bunch of his fellow gang members at the gas station, coincidentally, when he saw the victim. Like, what? None of that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they talked about the hypothetical cleaning of the car. And
he didn't change his clothes. He didn't clean the car. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine, because that's exactly how I literally cried. And people are about to call me crazy, but like I had a crazy relationship with my great grandmother. So when she passed away, I didn't cry, right? But I cried when that verdict was read. Pure tears just rolled down my face, and I was like, I don't even know these people personally. Why am I crying? But I just felt it was like a relief. It was like oh my God, it's over, right? It was like it's over and it's a not guilty.
Yeah. The funny thing is, like, they did actually convict. Stillwell wasn't just like they did find him guilty of something.
Yeah, the firearm, you know, he got the 8 and 10. But overall, when you hear that and you're just like, wait, it's not guilty on murder and RICO. It's almost like he got a slap on the wrist, you know, for having the gun.
Yeah.
But that was kind of very straightforward when you hear, oh, you know, the wiretap and oh, he had my gun, and you know, and it's like, okay, fine, right? But it's like not guilty on murder and not guilty on RICO.
Yeah.
It's not too often you hear people walking away from stuff like that.
No. Man, they should have. You know, if you beat all those other charges, you should get a freebie.
Mm-hmm.
The judge was kind of hinting at that with the aggravation.
Mm-hmm.
Are you really gonna do this notice and aggravation, even though you just acquitted on everything else?
Well, what was crazy was how fast she got that the sentencing. She was just like, "Oh, well, we can sentence now." Like she wasn't even trying to wait till a later date. She was like, "We can just go ahead and get this all out the way right now." Wait,
She's
okay.
known for a while.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
She's known for a while that she wasn't sending. You can't not send the worst one to prison and then send the less bad ones to prison. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
I mean, you can.
Yeah, we have an update for Thugger Daily too. Hold on, let me see something. Which I think is actually an update from Thug. I think he was speaking to Mr. Adams, guys. So let's see what we have going on here.
Hey, Jeffrey, what's going on, man? I'm actually on a live stream with a reporter talking about you. Say hello to the folks.
Hey, y'all see Young Thug? Hey, Young Thug, we have been praying for you, supporting you, watching you. We are keeping you in prayer while you're on this probation. It's just, we got you in prayer.
Hey, Jeff. Yes, sir.
Get me off the probation.
Okay. I wish we could start a petition to do that. We got to get you on the channel so people can hear from you. Like, everyone has been so invested in this trial and the outcome. How did that support feel? This is the question I just asked. Did you feel the support from everyone?
Jeff, we'll hold off on the attorney-client conversation in a second, but what the folks want to know is how you felt about the support that you received from everyone online in the chats, Everyone out there, how you felt about that situation? There you go. There you go. Listen, man.
Thank you.
I will do that. I'll do that. Tell you what. Let me wrap this up, and I'm gonna call you back in a few minutes so you and I can chat offline. Okay? Don't go to sleep, man. I know you're on a different time zone over there, but I'm gonna talk to you in a little bit. You're Miami? Okay. All right. All right, man. I'm gonna call you back in a few. Okay?
He said he in Miami. He said he in Miami. They said don't come back to Atlanta. They didn't say don't travel. They say you can keep your passport. You can, do whatever. I'm glad to hear him, and I'm glad that he's in good spirits for sure.
Yeah.
He said get him off probation. So we got to start a petition to get him off probation.
Yeah. There's definitely a difference between probation when you're stuck in Fulton County. Like, everybody breaks some laws sometimes, even if you don't mean to. We all do. Like, if you want to get violated, everyone speeds. Everybody does something.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't lie. Being in Atlanta, everybody told me, oh, don't do the speed limit. They're going to get you. Now, I'm not advocating for speedsters out there. But when I'm in Atlanta, I'm not doing, I'm a 5 or 10 above, maybe sometimes 15 above the speed limit type of person. But I don't know. I guess I have a cop radar going on in my head. So I tend, generally, but people in Atlanta be like, don't do that. You got to do the speed limit. They're very, very matter of fact down there about everything, which again, to me says, it's a weird thing because it says, okay, so they're on it, but sometimes they obviously may be on it too much until when they start messing with people. And it becomes
they're really on it about getting money and stuff. They're very on it with, getting the watches. The most famous watch.
Where's the watches?
Getting the Lambos and the $1.8 million. Very careful.
Yeah.
But speeding, once you can get a ticket, definitely do that. But, clearing a backlog of misdemeanors.
Or rape kits. The backlog of the rape kits, the backlog of the cases in general that have never seen the light of day. And now that this case is over, it's another one coming. But, Paige said this was only going to be 90 days. The next trial, she said, it'll be about 90 days. She's not going beyond that. So
I can only listen to you for 90 days. That's all you get. I'm sick of your shit.
Have we figured out if Love is prosecuting the second trial? We know that
I hope so.
Whitaker is presiding, but I think we're all sitting on pins and needles to see if Love is actually trying the case.
I hope it's not I hope it's not Adkins. Anybody else?
They left. Was it Atkins or a bot that they left at the table? Was it yesterday when everybody left afterwards, and she was just like, "So they left you by yourself." So I think it is them. I think because it makes sense. It's the same case number. Why wouldn't they be prosecuting the remainder of the case?
Yeah, I mean but they might actually be better. I don't know if I like that.
It's a bot. It was a bot that they left at the table. Yeah, so for a fact, the bot is prosecuting. But who else?
Oh God, maybe somebody who isn't evil. Hopefully, I can't stand that guy. Even though he's the funniest one by far.
But what's crazy, the jury said that they liked him. They said they liked him and Atkins, that they were straight and to the point. That is what the jury said. They didn't add all the fluff. They said that they liked them because they were straight and to the point.
Oh, people are... No, I can't say that. That would have been too much. Yeah, he's very... that was not a fair comparison. Yeah, I mean, he's likable. He's, sometimes he tells the truth too,
Microphone. No, he does not like the microphone. I don't think anybody at that prosecution table likes the microphone. They tend to avoid it very, very crazy.
Yeah, he's that is the thing that could happen.
Because my thing is, and I think we talked about at the beginning of this, when we talk about the Donovan Thomas murder, there were 5 people that were prosecuted. 2 people have now been let off of that. There are 3 people left. So do they, as and like, again, I know you don't do criminal law, but what would you think? Do you think that they changed their theory now? Because there's no way they go into the second part of this trial with the same exact theory that just got them a not guilty verdict.
Yeah, I'm just like basically like, what would the indictment look like? Like, you can't say you're charging two people that have already been acquitted, so you'd have to at least.
But did they change the indictment? Because isn't the indictment the same exact indictment we've been reading? It has
I assume so. I mean, it's their indictment, so I don't know how that works. I know
that flip it.
Well, actually, the witnesses can't change their. I mean, they can change like the little words they say, but they can't change their stories. They can still be impeached if they say something materially different. So that would be
right.
I assume maybe Georgia has some weird rule, but in general,
no, we got to make sure we tune into this because this. I don't know if I'll be as I can't say as an invested, but this trial weighed on my mental, and I think it weighed on a lot of people. I was getting up to people, hold on, I got to go to trial. I got court's in session, and I'm not in court. But I know a lot of people. We had similar, sentiments about how invested we were when it came to waking up, watching this trial every day at 9 a.m. or catching up with it. Or I, at one point, was hearing Love laugh in my sleep. Like, that's how it got really bad. It got pretty bad. The other night, I had a dream, and I heard, literally in my dream, from the protest, I heard, free YSL, free YSL. It was, I woke up out of my sleep hearing that.
Yeah, there's one thing that I just kind of noticed. I forgot about this, but I was looking through some of the people for the next trial, and like Christian Eppinger's case is kind of weird in that he can't take a plea, and they can't offer him a plea with what he's accused of. You can't give him probation.
The cop, yeah,
the cop, more the several. He has like half of the charges in the indictment. He has so many of them, and his lawyer's laptop was like.
Oh yeah. So what happens with that?
There's some weird stuff going on in his case that I don't know if anything's going to happen, but there's a chance that it could be very interesting. The second half.
Yeah. So I'm not going to hold you captive all night. I do think we should do this again. We told the people we're going to come back. And we came back, and I think we should absolutely do it again, maybe sooner. I know we both have a lot going on. If you guys follow who is now Happily Angry Esquire on ESQ on Twitter, or X as you call it, he goes so in depth with, and for somebody like me, it doesn't seem in depth, it seems very surface, but it's real in depth on breaking down pretty much this entire case. Like, the way he's done it in the pieces. If you wrote a book about this, Jim, not to throw out some, wrote a book about your breakdown of this case in the especially the Antonio Sledge portion, and how they changed the indictments around and changed you may have seen a perspective that nobody else has seen. And your perspective matter. No, it does. You were coming from the perspective that I didn't hear anybody else talking about. And the way you broke it down was seeing the differences. To you, that may not have made a big difference, but to me, somebody from I feel like had somebody of some stature or power been able to see those little things, that could have changed the course of a lot of stuff. Because not only did you see it in Antonio's case, you were able to break down other portions of this trial that people may not have seen. And I appreciate your effort and the time and dedication that it took to do that. In doing that, because you're still doing it. There's a tweet that comes out.
You should talk about that new case that I've been the new case from 22 years ago. I actually randomly happened upon this case. It was one of Miss Love's cases. I wasn't looking for it. I was looking for something else entirely. And then I saw that this is the destroyed gun case.
I think I saw a snippet of that on X.
Yeah, so Adrian Love, destroyed gun appeal, like, got my attention, and there's so much. I'm maybe a third of the way through the transcript.
And it came back on appeal. It was guilty. And they came back on appeal.
No, they've lost all their appeals. They're all sort of like still.
Oh yeah, we have to pick a date. We got to pick a date. I'm ready to talk and break that down. That sounds interesting. That sounds like things that people have been asking about. People want to know about these past cases that she's had her hands in.
You see some young people from the YSL trial. There's a young Dennis Scheib, who's says that he has many of the same things to say about Miss Love 20 years ago as he does today.
Wow.
Carson Matthews, Mr. Matthews, the 20 years younger Mr. Matthews makes a brief appearance.
One moment. Good night, Ganja. I just have to say good night to my mods before they leave. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Ganja, for being here from the beginning. I appreciate you. Vague, I don't know if you're leaving or if you're staying. We'll be here just a little bit longer. Thank you, and I hope you have a great night. To those that I know it's a little late for some people, it's going on 11 o'clock on the East Coast, if I'm not mistaken. Look at the time difference. But nevertheless, thank you guys for tuning in. It's still a little early for me, a little past my actual bedtime, but I'm up and I'm avid. Thank you guys that are tuned, 300 plus of you that are tuned in on Twitter. Those that are you that are on YouTube, be sure you subscribe, hit that like button. Make sure you follow Jim on X at Happily Angry ESQ, which is Esquire, lawyer, all those law terms. Be sure to follow him and follow his story and retweet the stuff that he says, because to me it's very important that other people hear what he has to say, and that is why he is here, because I love what he has to say. For sure.
Don't retweet everything I say.
Retweet it all, guys. Retweet it all. Retweet it all.
I've said some things about Adam Abadi that don't retweet that stuff. I've compared him to.
You hear his disclaimer, guys.
He's not evil.
So I'm interested in that case. Interested. And what's the person's name?
Oh, which one? The victim? The one, the old case?
Yes, the old case.
There's three guys actually. There's Demetrius Brewer, there's Lloyd Stevens, and the third is James McDowell, JJ McDowell. There's I can't. Next time we'll get into it. There's a lot of interesting.
Okay.
The repercussions
about to take over.
It goes back to 2024. There are links all the way to this year. It's really interesting.
Okay. Well, that'll be next time. If you're available next week, I'd love to come back. I think the people would love that. Yeah. What would you like to say to the people before you head out of here?
I can only think of unserious things.
That's cool. It doesn't have to be serious.
Let me see. No, I don't know. I have no idea. There's going to be interesting stuff in the new trial if it happens. There'll probably be less songs, but there will be a lot of interesting things that will happen in this next trial. So stick around.
We'll still be here talking.
Yeah.
The Beg says she loves unserious. Absolutely. Unserious is sometimes the best.
I have thoughts about the prosecutors I wanted to share, but
oh, please, we'd love to hear.
No, they're unserious. Like I hate them.
I'd love to hear.
Riddled with bullet holes? What are you talking about? What was that? You're just calling everybody dumb. Riddled with bullet holes. They all looked at the same pictures. Don't say that. Also, dripping blood. There are 7-year-old white kids in Iowa that know what dripping means. What are you doing? That doesn't even make sense. That's not a cool thing to say. You look like you're dripping with blood. Adkins with the hands? I love Adkins, but come on.
He talks with his
That's all I have. I love him. He's great, but he needs to join the other side.
I agree. I think he would make great for the defense. I think that, and originally I felt this way about Hilton, but I don't know if I felt this way at the end. But I feel like Atkins was just trying to do his job. That's what I see somebody just trying to do their job. Like that's what somebody just trying to do their job looks like. And I thought that about Hilton until the closing.
No, we're saying mean things. I thought the same thing. I think she changed over the course of the trial. I think Woody had the same effect on her as he did on Glenville.
I can see that.
To some degree.
I definitely, in the beginning, I was just like, no, she's just doing her job. She seems like, whatever. And then it was like towards the end, I felt like I don't think that her nor Atkins would have lasted until next year. Like had this gone on until next year, I feel like Hilton would have broke. You saw her breaking closing. She went from being whoever the hell she was the last year and a half to being somebody totally different. And like Vake said, when Woody called her out, like, why are you talking like this now? You weren't just talking like this before. Like,
yeah, for sure. That question about who's going to prosecute the next one, it's going to be funny if it's like a first year that nobody's ever seen before, that they just throw to the wolves. the wolf pack.
I don't know, because they like I said, they all left and left the bot at the table by himself. And Judge Whitaker spoke and said, "Oh, everybody left you." But if they didn't leave, would that have meant that they were on this next case?
I don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know who's going to do it.
I don't think that they will put Love back up there. I mean, if they do, that's some faith right there, baby. That's faith of a mustard seed that y'all think she didn't get it right the first time. Let us see if she can get it right. But you're never gonna get the portions. Okay. Sometimes I realize I can get a little excited. Now I don't want to come off strange. But when we're talking about the murders and we're talking about the theories that they've decided to use, unless you and I guess this wouldn't be mid-trial because it's new trial, unless you change your theory, your current theory leads to nobody because the theories that you had are clearly incorrect. There is no infinity. There is no drop top or sunroof off the infinity. Y'all never talked about the third car, so y'all don't know who the hell's in the third car because nobody questioned the third car. And I hate to say it seems like it's a cold case. It really seems like it's that way, and it sucks. But you can't put people in jail just because you have an emotional thought that they did it.
Yeah, this gets back to the very first topic about the victims. We talk about the murder, and like we're fundamentally not talking about the murder of Donovan Thomas, and we're not talking about the murder of Chanel Drinks. Like it's just a speculation.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a serious discussion. It was not a serious attempt to find out what happened. You know, the truth is something entirely different, and this case doesn't approach that. And you know,
and I think that's because we're leaving out key pieces and key elements. And then I hate to bring it up, but we're talking about it and everybody's talked about it. But for me, I don't think I've ever said it aloud or maybe I've said it in spaces. When you look at the video of the night of the unaliving of Donovan Thomas, and we see the video in the barbershop, and we see the gentleman walk by with that AR next to him. And to know that the cops never questioned him, they never got that gun. It was like he was a ghost, like he was never on that screen. And to know that we then later found out who that person was, and then found out that person was never questioned. But I honestly believe that person is the person that shot him, and it was probably not purposeful. It was probably them shooting back. But I feel like Mr. Thomas was caught in the crossfire. And that's just my theory, which is why they've never found a killer, because the person that killed him wasn't the person that was in any of those cars.
Yeah, that happened. So, this was a Fulton County case. There's a gas station shooting in Fulton County that happened almost exactly that way, where there were multiple people shooting, and I don't think either of the people doing the shooting hit the other person, but you know,
and that's
that happens.
That's been my theory, but I was like, I wasn't afraid, but I was just like, I don't want to speak on it saying this, but nobody mentioned that guy walked back into the barbershop with a whole weapon. Like he just got through firing it off and disappeared, and we never talked about him again. And I don't even think they ever mentioned him from months back before Woody. You know what I'm saying? When they were showing the videos, it's just kind of, it was like the third car. It just kind of like, and I don't know if that was purposeful. And that's kind of when I get at when I say like The lack of in-depth of investigation, right? It was purposeful, but at whose expense? You have a mother crying at the grave. You have, people, seeking answers, and you're playing on people's top. The prosecution played on the top of everybody in this case, the witnesses, the victims, the defendants, and it's never set right with me. It's never set right with me, and I don't think it ever will, even with the not guilty verdict, because there are people that still went to jail behind all of this, behind them putting this RICO and trying to tie it up like a bow and put it all together. People got hurt on this. People got stabbed in jail. People are still fighting for their lives. They still have to go back into those jails until they're free. There's still people that, didn't just walk out of jail with probation, but have another 2.5, 3 years. We have multiple that got more time than anybody. This case was a disaster in every sense of the word.
Yeah, it's always framing. Like, I'm thinking about the state, and I was like, the other car. It's not the other car. It's the last car that stopped next to at the murder scene, and it stopped like that's the car, and then Shannon's car is the other car. It's always it was from the start.
They just said because they did a piss poor job of looking into it, we're the people that were standing there with them. Right, they weren't on the stand. Only I think one person came on the stand. Other than that, you have all those people out there. It never made sense to me, and I feel so bad for the Thomas family, and I feel so bad for the Drinks family, and I stand with them when I say you can't just convict anybody just because you feel like it. That's not how the law works. You can't just say, oh, well, we know that they were into it with these people, so let's just all convict them of the murder. When you got 5 people you're charging, and you're saying that it was one car.
Yeah, and I mean it's.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, this is going to sound kind of cold, but I've kind of hinted at this, but there's probably a better way to say this, but the victims don't matter yet as far as this trial is concerned. Because we don't know if these guys have anything to do with the victims. And the state, if you don't know that these men are guilty, then talking about how the family has suffered is just, all you're doing is just playing on emotions of the jury.
And opening up wounds,
It's a 2-step process, and I think that once you start going down that road of talking about the victims and the impact on the victims before you have guilt, it's just a mess. It's not going to leave.
Love was trying to bring his mom on, and tried to say that it wasn't a victim impact statement and this, that, and the third, but it was like it clearly was, and if this is the way that these women try cases, I do feel bad for anybody that may get them as a prosecutor in the future. And I do feel like their past cases should be looked into, because if rights were violated, then this is something that the DOJ needs to look into. And it's not just something we can just sweep by like, oh, these were gangbangers and these were criminals, and who gives a care? Because if it happens, then it can bypass with them, it can bypass with anybody.
And I agree that they didn't look into the case comprehensively or correctly, but that would take so long to get into. This is
one of those cases that we can talk about for 10 or 15 years. You can write the book. It's one of those cases, and like I used to watch it with, like, I guess it was Lifetime Network and things of those type of, and just like cases that just bizarre or unsolved, and it's like, and it's not even just that, oh, they didn't do it because they didn't do it. When you put the puzzle pieces together, it doesn't make sense. You got Viverito hiding out in bushes, on Cleveland Avenue. So it's like just statements like that. Just
I don't care how sad you are. That's objectively funny. You can see her. Have you seen bushes like on the sidewalk before? They're just. I can't say anymore. It's what are you doing? You can't take pictures. You're in a bush. What do you?
That when I read that, it just felt like in a comic book, because I didn't hear her say it, but reading it was enough for me. When it's like, oh yeah, and my tactics included hiding in the bushes sometimes on Cleveland Avenue, and I was like, did I just read that? Like, like factually just read that. She is stupid, and I believe that They said she really wants to meet her. And I believe that just like, and I don't know if you've seen my post, but I'm very anti undercover cop. I'm very anti co-conspirator. Not co-conspirator. What do you call it? When you cooperate with the cops. All those different terms, CIs and all that. It's just like I was saying previously. The undercover cops, the criminal informants, and those that cooperate with the cops, those people keep up the mess. They keep up the mess. A lot of times, like I said, they bring the drugs in that may not have been there before. They bring the guns in. They start bullshit back and forth. And a lot of times, when you don't know who did the shooting, a lot of times it was them. So it's like there's so many things that people don't talk about and that people don't want to get into. And I understand things are touchy subjects, but facts are facts. And there were so many undercover cops in this case, and people not want to show their face, and just this whole slew of mess. And people are like, "Oh yeah, we know, Gaither been in the neighborhood. She's been doing this and that." They're Miss B. Oh yeah, and it's like they're so comfortable with discussing these people. It's like, did y'all infiltrated the hell out of that area, and then wonder why nobody trusts the cops, and wonder why nobody trusts their friends and their neighbors and all this, because y'all have glitched the community.
Yeah, I don't feel them being more trusted now than they were 2 years ago. I'm gonna go ahead and guess they're probably not going to be more liked as a result of this trial.
I wonder what experts they're bringing in next.
Oh my God. I don't know. I feel like I know more about all these topics than they do. I don't know anything about gangs, but like it's a thing. Like there's one gang, and then there's like other gangs. You don't have like fucking show and tell where you come and hang out at your little mixed clubhouse and talk about all the gang stuff you did together and hold hands and smoke meth. Apparently, that's not what gangs are. It's a gang. You don't talk about hoverboards. Going to the mall and getting mad about a hoverboard is not gang activity.
Then what we heard throughout this entire case from day one is that gangs and being in a gang is not illegal. So
not being in a gang is also not illegal.
Yeah, I agree. So that's why this whole case is yeah, exactly. She says so all three of us have West Coast ties. We know gangs. Yeah, and that's what pissed me off about Gaither. Gaither says, "Oh, I'm from Chicago." They asked her about like how her history, and she's like, "Oh, well, I grew up around gangs." That doesn't make you know anything about them. Like growing up around them. Like I went to school with a bunch of ritzy white folks. That don't mean I know what it means to be rich or white. You know what I'm saying? So it's like just because you hang around folks, it doesn't mean that you know anything. But that was her ploy, because she took that and went down to Atlanta and helped them start that gang unit.
God, they're just so confidently wrong. That's what makes me so mad. It's not that they're wrong. It's that they're so arrogant about how dumb they are.
It's the arrogance for me. Absolutely. Okay. Well, okay, Jim. I'm not going to hold you any longer.
I know. We've been saying the end for 30 minutes.
I know, right? That's it. Okay, so listen, I got ADHD. So unless somebody, like, hey, wave the white flag.
All right.
But yeah, no. So again, I appreciate you for coming through tonight with me. I know it's midweek, and I know that you work and all that good stuff.
Not much really.
I'm like, who does it? But I'm a creative, so I work from home, work from my computer. But I appreciate everybody that tuned in with us tonight, that is on X/Twitter, that are out over here on YouTube. Again, this is my final goodbye. I've said bye 4 or 5 times. But thank you, mods, for being here. Thank you for those that were in chat throughout the night. I wasn't able to get to some of your questions, but I will tap back in with you guys. Some of the replay crew, I know you guys leave comments and stuff. But again, thank you, Mr. Happily Angrily Lawyer. Thank you, Antonio, who had to go. And this was another Elevated Conversations. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Jim. All right.